Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the Thursday, December 13th, 2018 meeting of the City of Royal Oak Zoning Board of Appeals. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request that the board table or adjourn your item to the absence of a full board, which is not the case this evening, we do have a full board, so there's no reason for that. Petitioners shall please do their best to limit their presentations to 10 minutes, and each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Before we get started, we obviously have a very full room. Normally, we are not nearly this packed, and we sort of operate in a more laissez-faire kind of attitude. This evening, I'm going to be really strict, 3 minutes. That's all everybody gets at the microphone. I know that there are some things that are going to raise people's ire. Please do not clap when you agree with something. Don't hiss and holler when you disagree with something. We really need to maintain decorum this evening, so everybody's help would be greatly appreciated as far as that's concerned. With that being said, I'm going to call for the approval of the minutes for the November 8th meeting.
Motion approved.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections, additions, deletions?
Perfect.
Not seeing any, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That moves us on to our first item of old and unfinished business, case number 181136, Mr. Murphy.
Yes,
The petitioners are present this evening.
correct. They
Okay.
have presented you in writing with something asking that you further postpone the item. Perhaps if you'd like to bring them up and
Yeah,
ask them for
gentlemen.
some insight onto that, that would be fine.
Good evening, Matt Bates, on behalf of petitioner, with Jake Modesto of Stonefield and the party looking to buy the split parcel, Alex Christoph. We did ask for relief to adjourn this to another night in hope that we would have one of the representatives from the property present. His schedule hasn't aligned with last month or this month, but with a full panel, we think we're ready to proceed today if that's not objectionable.
That's only your prerogative.
Yes.
With that being the case, then I'll let Mr. Murphy just sort of read into the record what you're doing, and then I'll give you the floor back to
Absolutely.
explain.
I'll bring up this survey. If you want to go ahead and
Yeah, why don't you
present
do
the
that
board
then?
with any further insight, and then if you want, I can bring up the survey and you can point or reference the board to anything in particular with regard
absolutely.
to that. That'd be good.
I'd like to start by thanking the board for hearing our petition. We're excited to be back before the board to try and get this variance pushed over. A little history on the property. The property in question is 804 Forest. This property is a double lot. The lot has maintained the initial characteristics of the boundary lines for plat 56 and 50, or 65 and 67, or whatever the two numbers are. I can't see them on the plat anymore. I believe it's 65 and 66. Those plats have not changed in their dimensional characteristics. They're 35-foot frontages. At one point, the city of Royal Oak allowed an owner to build a duplex property on one of those existing plats. And then it's our belief that it was administratively joined under common ownership to create a double lot. With that said, both lots do still sit within their 35-foot frontages, and in a perfect world, we would be able to do this administratively, looking to split into 2 equal 35-foot frontages. However, with building issues, we would require a shorter setback on the vacant parcel of a 34-foot frontage. A little more history, the current existing property fits the existing character of the area. The existing structure has adequate off-street parking and would not need additional spaces. The size of the existing structure is comparable to other properties in the area. And the construction and style of the existing structure fit the neighborhood that it sits in. As for the non-use variance, which would be required for the vacant parcel, we're looking to build property on it, which we've created a rendering, which that one's not as important. Alex can hold this. The rendering is going to be the blue house that sits between the existing duplex property. The blue house is what would be created, and then there's the existing home owned by the existing neighbor. The property is zoned single-family residential. That's what we're looking to put on this existing vacant lot. So but the issue that we're running into is a zoning ordinance does not allow for that because it requires a 50-foot frontage. The variance would do substantial justice to the neighborhood. For starters, it would fill in a vacant lot. It would pull the neighborhood together. It would also uncap the taxable value of that parcel. and it would help alleviate some of the concerns that were raised by neighbors at the last month's meeting. They've made complaints about the upkeep of the lot, the landscaping not being maintained. These are all things that would be rectified by building this property and allowing the current buyer who has an equitable interest in it to build a single-family residential property within the confines of what's built in that neighborhood. The same construction materials, similar styles, and really just a beautiful house as shown in that picture. So the hardship that's created is created as the zoning ordinance change. The zoning ordinance has kind of outgrown the neighborhood. All of these plots, I believe 18 of them have 35-foot frontages. So if this were split back into its two 35-foot frontages, it would not change the characteristic of the neighborhood. It would bring, like I said, it would kind of bring it together, and it would allow for substantial benefit to the actual neighbors and the community. This plight is unique to this homeowner because of how this property was turned into a double lot with an existing non-conforming structure on one of the lots. So it leaves a particular parcel, which is already a 35-foot frontage with the same boundary lines as platted in 1928, unusable. So it deprives the property owner of its right to use the property, and that's something that we're trying to request relief from, and that's what we believe the purpose of the ZBA. And we think that this is a very fitting variance that is in conformity with other variances that have been issued in the past. And this is not a hardship that was created by the current property owner. So that's about all that we have. If there's any questions, I can answer.
And actually, before I go to questions, Mr. Murphy, was there anything that you wanted to add since we're sort of doing this in reverse order? No. Okay. Any questions for the petitioner?
Did a better job than
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, did you mention you're going back to two 35-foot parcels?
Well,
I see one at 34 and 36.
And I don't mean to interrupt. In a perfect world, we could do it in 35-foot parcels, but the building department informed us that because it's a tenant-operated facility duplex, that there would be a requirement to do fire flashing on the face that would sit between the properties. And they said the way to alleviate that would be to do a further foot setback. So we'd be doing two 35-foot frontages with a condition from this board possibly to increase the setback to eliminate any building safety concerns.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Other than the renderings, has anything changed in the arguments that you've presented from last time? So far, I've heard nothing really, but except how you've trying to arrange it.
Well, I believe that the argument stands in the initial setting. I mean, the hardship is derived from a change in the zoning ordinance, which is, without the relief of variance, creates an issue with property rights being taken away from a property owner. So I don't believe that anything else has really drastically changed outside of the order.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Why do you consider it rights taking away from a property owner when they actually have a nice piece of property? And right now, they're not in compliance with a single family, but they are in compliance with the square footage of the property.
Well, a property owner's rights are more than just living and occupying. It can be developing, it can be any nature of rights. This property owner is now an out-of-state resident from the state of Michigan. His age and health concerns have required him to move away. He's got 48 rental properties in the state, and he's trying to divest himself of certain properties and certain things that can be problematic. There was concern in the public that this property has been maintained and that there have been issues with the current tenants. So these are issues that are coming up that are ancillary to his use of the property as a landlord. And what he's trying to do is alleviate those concerns and believes that this is a good way to go about that. He's a great property owner, but he can't control every aspect being absentee in California. Now, putting a property in here puts somebody who's been a tenant of this gentleman for years in a position where he's in a beautifully new built property, so there's going to be no more maintenance concerns with that vacant lot. He has an ear to the landlord, so if there are issues with parking or noise or things of that nature, he's going to be a buffer to the one existing neighbor, and he's going to be an ally to the other neighbor to try help and alleviate all of those concerns. So the property right issue is that he does, as an owner, have the ability to develop that property. The only issue that we're really talking about is that 1 foot that leaves us away from the administrative remedy of doing an equal split of the original 35-foot parcels.
So the owner of the property is only selling off the lot, but he's keeping
That's
the
correct.
other one.
He's maintaining the duplex, and he's transferring the interest in the vacant lot to allow it to be developed and then conform to the neighborhood.
Anybody else? Now, is it factually correct that if in fact they were able to achieve two 35-foot lots, that would be an administrative sign-off and we wouldn't be hearing this. That's sort of what the representative had alluded to.
Yeah, and without actually conducting that, or previously conducting that, I couldn't answer that off the top of my head. We can take a look at the map that they provided with us. It may have noted some of the lot sizes.
If I may, we've done a rough count, and it would have to be followed up, but we counted that 13 of the 18 properties on the south side of Forest are 35-foot frontages.
And on the north side, they're all
Requirement's
40.
50.
Right. All right. Any other questions for the petitioner at this point? All right, I'm gonna ask you gentlemen to take a seat, although I think you might have lost your seat, so you just want to stand to the side a little bit. And I'm gonna go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anybody here that would like to address the board on this matter? Yes, sir. Anthony? Who's that?
Thank you, sorry.
Morning, or evening, I should say. David Liedel on behalf of 706 Forest. I'm here with Betty Crippen and Deb Harrod. Last time we were here, a letter was given. I believe it's still part of the record, I presume, so I won't read through it all. Full disclosure, I wrote it with Betty. Some of the things we've heard are a bit a stretch. And I'm going to go, I know I only have 3 minutes and actually maybe 9 between the three of us. I'll go through them quickly. Nothing has changed since the last hearing. I watched it yesterday and I watched it today. They don't want to just take 1 foot. They want to reduce the multifamily by 40%, from 9,000 square feet to 5,400. All right? They want to change the setbacks to make them closer to Betty's house. Remember, the two people who are affected the most are Betty and the Serafinskis, and Miss Amy Serafinsky was here last time. Those are the two properties that are affected the most, and neither of them want it. So when they say we want to bring the community together, that's not true. I think council misspoke when he said this would be administrative to 35 feet. No, if he wanted to go back to the original plot and have 2 single-family houses, he might. But to keep the multi-family house there, or to change the characteristics, the new city requirements are 50 feet. I know you guys know that, and I know this is a thankless job, so I'm not going to go through it. And I know I only have a few minutes, so I'm not going to reiterate everything. But Mr. Bates says there's procedural difficulties and hardship. There's not. Actually, the petitioner doesn't even own the property. If he buys it knowing that there are problems. He's created the hardship. It's funny how they say the owner wants to divest properties, but he's keeping the rental because he wants to keep all the income. And for him to say he's an outstanding landlord, I think everybody on that block would flip. I live at 706 Forest. Mr. Wilner owns the property next door. He does the bare minimum. There's paint peeling. There's limbs falling. Every tenant, it's funny, and I know some of this is digressing. The tenants who just moved out, I told them I was coming here, and they laughed because they know how the landlord treats his properties. He does the bare minimum to squeeze every penny out of it, and that's what they're trying to do with this split. Again, Mr. Bates said this, it's this board's job to give the property owner the highest investment use. That's not true. This board's to follow the zoning and give hardship appeals, and there's no hardship here. Again, we've been through this, so I'm not going to reiterate it, but under the city charter 70-124E2, the applicant, who's not here again, has to meet all 4 requirements. It has to be unique, extraordinary, exceptional, undue hardship. None of those have been met. When you go down to E2, the 4 requirements, none of them have been met. The restrictions don't unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property as permitted. They can use the property as it is now. The variance would do substantial justice to the applicant as well as other property owners. It's not going to do other property owners. I know I'm out of time.
Yeah,
I got about 30 seconds and I'm done. The plight of the landowner is not unique circumstances. And more importantly, the hardship's not created by any person having an interest. If they buy this empty lot knowing that they can't conform, they're creating their own undue. So last time there was a motion to deny all the variances by Mr. Olfack. I hope I got that right. I request the board to renew that motion and approve that motion and deny all the variances. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can he have my 3 minutes?
I don't think I was saying my point.
Yeah, I think you made some solid points, but ma'am, if you want to take your 3 minutes, you're certainly welcome.
My name's Deborah Herrick, and I'm at 731 Forest. I live across the street from Betty, which is 2 lots down and across the street from the open one. The attorney, I stepped in a little late. The attorney, well, other than I think Miss Anderson, I don't think she was here. I think everybody else was here last time. Like Miss Amy, lady on the other side, we all took care of the property for years. We don't know how to get a hold of this renter. We do now, or the owner. But there's enough houses in our immediate neighborhood that he could purchase already completed, probably more than he wants to spend, but at the same time, there's a fear that he's going to build, maybe stay the minimum, and then be out, and it'll be a rental or additionally, not well taken care of. I personally live next door to somebody that has not taken care of his property. He owns it. He's a young man. I'll be quite honest with you, I'm not cordial with him. I've never spoken to the actual owner, but it causes a lot of hard feelings when people don't take care of their properties. And the lot has been open. It's a breezeway for natural airflow. And if it were to be built, it probably would be, something nice to look at. But it's the things that go on behind the doors that, if it's not up to the zoning code, then it shouldn't be allowed. Thank you.
Hi, Betty Crippen, 734 Forest. I guess I would be impacted. When he said it would be a buffer between the rental and me, no, it wouldn't be. I would prefer the open space. Even though we've had problems with the renters and the upkeep of the property, open space is always better than a house that's this close to you. I did receive a call from Alex last night at my home, and he suggested that we postpone this meeting. I said, well, we can't do that. You know, how do you do that? You can't, all you people are going to show, and I don't think we can say we're going to just postpone it. If you're going to show up, I told him I was going to show up. So, and he is here, so, and I'm here. So, and he also asked me what it would take to get me on his side. Basically, I prefer that there wouldn't be a house built there. And there's a lot of variances that have to be met, and I just don't think that it can be a good thing. So, that's all I'm going to say today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to address us on this matter? Hopefully I'm not missing anybody. All right, not seeing anybody, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table for discussion. And gentlemen, if you want to walk back over to the microphone in case we have any questions for you. Yes, sir.
Well, as I tried last time to do before we delayed it, I'd like to make a motion to deny the variances as requested.
We have a motion.
I'll support.
Second.
Reason why I want to deny all the variances is, as previously stated last time, they haven't really shown any kind of hardship is required to grant these variances. Going through them, this prevents the owner from using the property as permitted use already. Already it's a duplex, splitting it's causing the problem. He could use it if it was maybe a single family, but they're not going to, so therefore it's caused by himself. Variance would do substantial justice to the applicant as well as the other property owners. Financial should not be counted as this, and as we've heard from everyone who spoke, as well as all the petitions that got signed last time, all the property owners feel it does not do any kind of substantial justice to the neighborhood. The plight of the landowner is due to the unique circumstances of the property. Maybe, but that's only because of the next part, which is they are creating their hardship themselves by asking this to be separated instead of using it as it's intended. So because of that, I can't see any reason why to grant this variances as requested.
There's some specific criteria related to land division requests, and one of those is whether the lots are consistent, that are being created are consistent in terms of width, size, and the general character of the area. Maybe you can address that as well.
Well, and that, thank you, Joseph. In that case, because it's less than the 50%, because the whole north side is all 40-foot lots, and we also have among here, I'm trying to get my screen's not updating, it's good. Because I walk this area frequently with my kids on the way to the park over there at Whittier. As you can see, yes, there are some 35-foot lots, but they're, of course, wanting to go 34 and 36, and that doesn't even meet the 35. But there's also, right at that location, there's a nice big 70-foot lot and the 107-foot lot. So because of all that, even if there were these as 35, they wouldn't even meet the minimum criteria for the automatic split, so.
Very good. Ms. Anderson, anything that you wanted to add as support?
I would agree with everything that's been said. I did watch the presentation on the film last month. I just think that there's many requests here, and that we would substantially be increasing the nonconformity in many aspects of it. I'm not a fan of 8-foot driveways either. I think it gets really tight, and it makes it difficult when there's a fence that someone decides to put up. Those are some of my basic reasonings, along with what's already been said. And I do feel that in this instance, we should not grant the variance.
Any other comments from the board?
I think the applicant did have a good point about the setback on the side. I do understand that. By going to 34 feet, it makes sense, because you will require rating on that wall. And my first thought was, we'll hold the 35, fire rate the wall, but it would be challenging, because it is brick, so it'd be very difficult to remove that brick, which looks nice in the home, to do that. So I understand why you did that. So just to bring that point up to the board, it'd be very challenging to try to rate that wall or protect the wall. So that's why they went to that 34 versus 35 feet.
Anything else?
I guess the point too about the driveway, that it is an 8-foot driveway, but that's existed for years, so I don't know how we can comment upon that. In the new building, they could, I mean, they're showing setbacks here, but they could make a driveway that fits, or is wider at least for the new development.
Well, and I understand that, but if there's ever an instance where the house next door decides to put up a large fence, they have the capability now to move it to the other side if they wanted to. So it would fit, so.
All right, any other comments? All right, then I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion, which is to deny all the variance requests, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen,
Thank you.
sorry. I thought you had a follow-up comment, I'm sorry. All right, that moves us on to our second item of old business, which is case number 181138. Mr. Murphy? Give you a second to get recalibrated there.
I should be faster. Learn my lesson.
Is the petitioner present for this case?
Do they know their case number? Maybe they don't know.
227.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, the 227 Phillips Place. Well, why don't you
Come
come
on
on
up
up, yeah.
Since the last meeting, the petitioner has provided the board with a revised set of drawings based on some comments, and there's a summary table in your report that highlights the original variance requests and whether that variance request remains the same, it's been eliminated, reduced, or if it would require a new set of variance based on the new or modified drawings. Petitioner can highlight and we can go through the revised drawings, and as we do, we can discuss the variances that were original variances and how they have been changed, modified, eliminated, what have you.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy before I kick it over to the petitioner? All right, not seeing any, the floor is yours, sir.
Yes, my name's Kevin Howell. I live at 227 Phillips, which is down at the corner of 3rd and Phillips here. And I was here last month, and we went through the variances associated with my addition, as well as a redo of my garage. And there were some changes that we had put in place, but they didn't get in time for Joe and folks to look at them. So we took and went back and actually made another change or two to it, and I got Joe new plans, right? So one of the original ones was the idea that we was trying to maintain the original setback on the property, which is currently like a foot off the north side and 1.5 foot off of the east side. So between talking with a lawyer here in town about the variances and so forth, as well as my one neighbor on the east, we changed the setback to the minimum of 3 feet off both north and east, right? We reduced the square footage on the back porch, which was, I didn't understand initially that they were going to count both, the current porch and stuff, and I was, I think, 112 feet over or something, the 1,800-foot max. Now I'm like at 1,826. We just reduced the size of the back porch that we were adding. We also changed the driveway so that on the 3-car garage, it would basically go back and angle in and tie into the current apron. So in other words, no need to change, we wouldn't change the apron into the current driveway. My driveway is shared with my neighbor to the east as well, so I think I'm pretty close to the limit anyway, so we just decided we would change that. And then we also took off there was a breezeway that we were showing attached to the house to the garage that we've currently eliminated as well. So with those changes, I'm hoping that the board will grant the remaining variances, right? So.
All right, any questions for Mr. Howell?
And I just wanted to finish by saying,
Oh, please.
I brought none of my posse this time.
They're all yours.
We're supporting, but I had 6 neighbors here last time, right? And I just wanted to mention that they were all in favor. I had nobody.
I remember that.
I'm sorry?
I remember that.
Yeah, nobody was against
Ever came
it.
through that everybody liked. So.
Everybody liked. I paid them $20. No, I'm just kidding.
Whatever it takes.
No. But, so they were all for it, and as far as the hardship goes, and as part of the reason why I actually went and talked to a lawyer here in town to help me kind of understand this, and basically what we came up with was that most corner lots, my understanding, are 60 feet wide. And a typical interior lot is about 120 feet long, right? My corner lot is 50 feet wide, and it's about 112 deep, right? So I'm not saying that's a lot, but I'm just trying to basically bring the house up to, it's a 1929 bungalow that I'm just trying, if you've seen the plans, just try to make it look more like a lot of the newer ones, but at the same time, the dormer on the garage, just to try to, pay heritage to the dormer on the front of the house. We went through 10 sets of plans trying to make the garage look like it marries to the house well and talks to it. And so, yeah, so I guess that's all I got.
Very good. Any questions for the petitioner at this point? All right, I'm going to ask you to take a seat real quickly. I'll open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the ZBA on this matter? All right, not seeing anybody, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Mr. Howell, don't go too far in case we need you. All right, it's on this side of the table. Yes, sir.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve all the variance requests.
I'll support that.
Floor is yours. We have a motion and a second.
Yes, I think in my opinion, you made very reasonable efforts to reduce these variance requests, which is great. So thank you for listening to us last month. So you eliminated 2, reduced 4, you expanded 1, but overall it was a net reduction. Like you mentioned, I think it's a nice project. It fits in well. The addition ties in well to the home. So thank you for that. And you had great neighbor support too, which is often rare. So thank you.
Mr. Kroll.
Yeah, I feel much the same way as Mr. Klatt. I was kind of ready to approve it last month. There were a couple things that bothered me, and he's addressed those. So again, strong neighbor support. So I think this is a very doable project.
Any other comments? Ms. Anderson?
Oh, well, I was going to ask Joseph, just to make this clear to me, that the reason for the requirement of the new variance request, that's because they put the garage in compliance with the other 2 edges, or the east and the north, right? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll throw the wet blanket on the happiness. New variance request required new variance notice.
I was going to ask you that
Yeah.
next. So,
I was waiting to jump in. If we identify a new variance request that wasn't previously identified, that's a new variance request.
so does that mean they're going to have to come back again?
You
if
can
we-
modify your approvals to allow him to move forward in some capacity, but as he shifts it forward, it reduces that front yard setback. It's no longer, it's a greater variance request than it was previously noticed at.
Okay. Because I was.
Get them to go back
pleased with that.
to what it was last month and approve it?
You could, or you could give him a smaller sized garage, and they would take off, we'll say, some of the front of that garage. So it was pushed forward 2 feet. If he removes the 2 feet off the front of the garage, reduce the.
Joe, I'm still behind that.
Mr., I'll come up to the microphone, please.
So, one of the things that the lawyer tried to help me and my architect understand was that the greenhouse, right? I am still, even with the 2 foot forward, I'm still almost 2 feet or 1.5 feet behind the front of that property, right?
We'll get to some pictures.
So, here's the question, right? Right. So, the lawyer and the architect and I found in the code where that front porch, because it's enclosed and heated, right, counts as the front of that house. Right? So, even with the garage being pulled 2 feet more, okay, I'm still, and if you look at one of the plan views, you'll still see that I'm 1.5 feet or so still behind the front of that porch, even pull forward at the current size.
But the question isn't really, I mean, we've already approved it, but the question is you have a new variance on there, which we can't approve.
Well, is that
so
the new
that's been noted.
variant, Joe? Is that what you're talking about?
We count the front yard setback as the nearest point of living space to the original structure. That was obviously an enclosed porch. It's allowed to be project from the front face of that adjacent home. We don't count that as living space. That's an enclosed porch. It's not a living space according to us, according to the
It kind of
ordinance.
looks like it in this scenario, though.
It does, but it wouldn't, if someone came in to add a porch onto the front of that and said, that's not a front porch, that's living space. I get add a front porch to that. We'd say, no, you can't. That's your
Yeah.
porch. What's there now?
But
is
from
your
a
porch.
sight line, it's real.
Okay, I just want a quick question for Joseph.
Please.
We're talking about letter E here, am I right? Keep the score
Yes.
with the program?
Let's take a
Okay,
look.
so and the discussion is, should letter E be even asked for? And you're suggesting it should be?
Yes.
Because of this discussion about
Yes.
whether or not that porch is living space?
Yes, you could reduce a variance, one of these other ones, and that would allow them to have a reduced garage size that would be in line where we measure the living space.
Can we say we don't agree with you and say this lines up?
He would have to apply for a variance in order to do that.
Mr. Klatt?
I would say the only gripe the neighbor had was how close the garage was to the lot line. So when you
Yes,
pushed it
and-
forward, that helped them and they were in support at that
It
point.
did. I even
So-
offered up addition to that. I offered up to basically when my garage is being done, if they want to pave their driveway at the same time, I will let them pave it and I will put it in writing up to my garage, right? So I'm giving them almost 3 feet more than what they currently have for a driveway because they can't really pull. That blue car that you see between them actually is on my property line when they pull in. And I offered to give them, right? And Allison was, I think that between that and moving it over the 1.5 feet is what basically, made her say, I'm good with it, right? I know it makes no difference that it's a rental. Allison will never move back here, I'm convinced, right? But I do understand that from a selling standpoint of the house, or if someone, did buy it and they wanted to have a larger garage, I am more than willing to let them pave up to my garage, because it's a 1.5 feet of grass that I don't need to have to worry about, right?
Well, let me go to Anthony first, then you, Paul.
I think actually it's not 2 feet that way. I think it's 2 feet up in the plan towards the rear of the property that's to your north, is that?
North.
It's been pulled closer to 3rd Street.
So it moved south.
Right.
It moved south and it moved west.
I'm getting all, discombobulated with that.
Mr. Curtis, go ahead. Well,
Yeah,
Bring
right,
up the drawing.
Come back.
Over.
right.
But procedurally, we can't even talk about E as a variance to vote on.
You could consider the original variance request.
You can't have E unless he comes back again next month and asks for it.
Only variance request, as is, as according to these drawings. You could give him a reduced variance, you could give him a, this is where it gets confusing.
We're talking about a
You could give him a variance
Oh,
request.
this is where it gets confusing. Wasn't confusing yet.
It's been pulled forward 2 feet,
Yep.
so I'll reference on the screen that it's been pulled forward.
We waived 5.5, and we were at 4.5.
Has listed the original variance request from, in line with the original portion, we'll say, of the house adjacent. It's been pulled forward 2 feet. Now it necessitates a larger variance request because it's getting even further reduced setback from third. If you granted him a variance request to have a smaller footprint garage, he could still have his garage in that general location, but it would be a smaller footprint. He could cut it back 2 feet since he moved forward 2 feet.
Do you want to do that?
No, I do not want to do that.
I knew the answer to that. That's one of the rhetorical questions.
I'll take it down to 22 feet
22 on the depth.
on the depth, but
Yeah.
you have wall thickness, which impacts that as well.
Or he needs that, I think there's a stairway back there too.
Yeah, that would impact the height of that roof too.
He has original variance requests still on the table for 1 foot off of each of those property lines.
How about this one? I would not change my east-west for Allison, because I promised, I've already said I would do
You
this,
could
right?
push it back to 1 feet, and it doesn't necessitate a new variance request. That's the one that the board is still considering.
Could I still do the 3 feet, or the 1.5 though, addition on the east though? So I gave Allison the 3 feet on the side?
Yep.
That's a win-win for me.
As long as the board, you wanted to originally grant them all the original variance requests.
Yeah, so,
If,
I mean, it's
Then I
really
will
up to
make-
you two. You made the motion and.
I will maintain the motion. Does that make sense, or do I have to modify?
Well, does it, and all that's really needed to be done was just move it, the one that's on the north side there, 3 feet, that would just need to be 1 foot, right? The
Yeah,
3
you-
foot on the side can stay as it is.
Yes.
Yes.
He's depicted something different than what the motion to approve is.
Right.
You're giving him the variance to be a foot off the,
North line.
yes, and the drawing shows it as 3 feet.
Right.
So you didn't say, no, we'll give you a variance for 3 feet, at
And
3
you're
feet.
okay with that?
And Joe, I will send you prints tomorrow with it updated to the one.
Your
and
current
three.
motion is fine,
Okay.
but this drawing would be revised just to push it back to 1 foot.
Okay.
So, and this is the one where the overhang goes up to the property line? On that north side? And you were gonna
Yeah.
shave that
Yeah,
off
Yeah.
or something? Do you remember that?
Well, it was, the original complaint, at least from Allison anyway, was on the east side, right, of my
Right, but
overhang
I'm
was
talking
gonna
about
be-
if you're gonna push it back now.
Right.
And get that extra 2 feet so you don't have to do a new variance request.
That, I wasn't moving it from the north side because of the roof line, right? I don't think we had an issue with the
Okay.
roof line,
You
because
just want
that's,
it to
the
be-
dormer thing's not on the backside. It's
Right.
a real low roof. I mean, we tried to make it so that my neighbor to the north, had more of a traditional looking roof on the backside so that it
Right.
didn't look as bad for them.
They can
That's
achieve
fine.
it through the building code.
Okay, okay.
What do we,
Now, Joseph, procedurally, do you need him to modify his motion at all, or?
No, because the motion was to approve all the original variance requests. I just wanted to note that the drawing as presented would require an additional variance request, but if you're approving all the original variance requests,
Oh, wait, I thought you were approving the new variance in front of us. I
all right, well, how do we just deal with
thought you were
E?
approving this one.
Well, no,
we
because
deal
I mean,
with E?
the modifications have been discussed, and your department's happy with what's being proposed, and we're proposing or approving the previous.
it's fine.
And
I would like to, yes, continue. Let's continue.
Mr.
I
Kroll?
will
I'm
keep my
totally
support.
lost.
That being said, are there any additional comments from the board? Mr. Curtis?
I just want to make sure, because I'm looking at an agenda that says E, waive 4.5 feet of the minimum required 28.5-foot setback along East Third Street related to the expansion of the existing detached garage accessory structure. However, this motion is not actually voting on E. Is that what you're telling me?
I think so.
No, it is.
It's voting on
This
E4.
drawing does not depict that.
But we're going to approve this particular variance with this particular motion if we vote.
9 cases.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion passes. You're all set. Hey, I said no clapping.
It's good. We'll get you there.
Thanks, Mr. Howell.
I've got a cold all week, or I'm shaking.
Good luck to you.
Enjoy it.
Thank you, sir. All right, we are now moving along to new business. First item being D1, case number F181209, public hearing on the appeal of Paul C. Johnson, petitioner and owner for the following variance to the city's fence ordinance, waive 2 feet of the maximum allowable 6-foot height to install an 8-foot-high tall site obscuring vinyl fence along the rear property line located at 3026 Guilford Drive. Mr. Murphy.
This is a single-family home that butts up to the rear to a parking lot for a multifamily apartment complex, the Woodward North Apartments. The parking lot separates the property with a masonry screening wall, and you can see from the photographs it's probably not quite 6 feet. And the petitioner wants to install an 8-foot tall vinyl fence on their rear property line for additional privacy. The ordinance requires if a fence is installed at the property line, it'd be no taller than 6 feet. So they're seeking a waiver of 2 feet from that maximum height of 6. And I think the pictures in the report probably present, along with what the petitioners provided, present you with a clear scenario of circumstances.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Murphy, was there a height requirement for the commercial property, the multifamily apartment to have? Because I did, like you said, it's a little short of, I walked up to it, so it's like here because it jogs down. So here it's right here, and here it's just right here. So nowhere is it 6 feet when I'm walking up to it, but.
Today's standards would be 6 feet.
Okay.
I'm not certain what it was at the time or if that grade elevation changed.
You know, it did, because then they had to like drop it down a smidge, and they're kind of on that. And also, I did notice that there was another property down this, a few doors down, that put up a little extra buffer on theirs.
It's kind of lattice.
Yeah, right.
It was enclosed.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Is the petitioner present?
My name is Paul Johnson. Thank you so much for your time. This is the first home that I've ever purchased. I was very proud to purchase it, but after I moved in and I knew that this apartment complex was behind my property, going into my kitchen every morning, sitting in the sunroom, I could just see people coming and going from their cars. Also, there's dumpsters behind that retaining wall. So people are consistently coming and dropping off trash every morning. There's garbage trucks that pick up the dumpsters and remove the trash. So it's just more of a privacy issue. Both neighbors to either side of me are in agreement that 8 foot would be appropriate and would actually benefit them as well. So that's really why I'm here. It's just, it's sort of unsightly. In some of the pictures, yeah, it is. It's between like 5.5 feet tall and 5 feet tall. It goes down at one point along the edge of the property, but also the retaining wall is falling apart in one portion, so it's a bit unsightly. So that's the other reason that I'm petitioning.
Any questions for the petitioner at this point?
I was,
Yes, sir.
I was kind of wondering, kind of trying to look at it from your viewpoint and also the viewpoint of the people looking in.
Right.
I had a bit of a problem aesthetically with having 2 feet sticking up there. I think the lattice work down the road is, kind of looks a little foolish, so it's, I guess, I didn't really understand the privacy issue. I mean, I guess if you built it 15 feet high, you might have some privacy, but, I mean, if that balcony can't see you, the next one can, so how high can?
Right. So I think that in a couple of the other photographs, you can see, so there's some from the aerial photographs that you guys took, and whoever took those, thank you very much. There's parking spaces up towards the retaining wall, and so people coming to their cars, they can directly see into my kitchen and into, my patio.
Any other questions?
And so if I did a 6-foot wall, I mean, it would only provide an additional 6 inches of height, and some people can see over that. So I think the ground level at my property is a little bit below the Woodward North apartment complex ground level.
You'd have to be about 6'5" to see over a 6-foot fence.
Right.
You have a lot of big people living around there?
Yes.
I have a question for the petitioner.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you say that there's garbage trucks that go directly behind your house?
Oh, yes. There's photographs, I think, that someone here took. There's dumpsters along, I think, behind my neighbor and the other neighbor as well. So, and they're picked up every single day. So, I mean, 24/7, there's people going to these dumpsters and dropping in trash, and I can see them from my kitchen.
Yes, sir.
I'd say one of our common fence questions when it comes to height is, have you considered an evergreen screen or something to help with that height? Arborvitae or something along those lines?
I did, but the cost, I thought, would be a little bit prohibitive for me.
Yes, sir.
And we understand that, however, our finances isn't part of the hardship of it. Because ideally and I actually feel for you, but the problem is that I'm going to have with this is we're starting what could be a domino effect where every single neighbor along that area wants to now come before us and put up a fence. And I can perfectly understand. It's just one of those things we're going to have to recognize as a board that this could start a domino effect that'll cause that whole thing, and whether or not we want that or not.
Sure. If I could also comment with the arborvitaes, there's power lines that are directly above the retaining wall, so that was also another contributing factor as well.
Yep.
All right, any other questions for the petitioner? I'm just going to ask you to step to the side for 1 second so I can open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the ZBA on this matter? All right, not seeing anybody, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Mueller?
Okay. Personally, I incredibly dislike 6-foot privacy fences. But this is a house that it isn't somebody putting up an 8-foot or a 10-foot fence next to your house. It's a parking lot of effectively, even though it's apartments, like a commercial building directly behind them. I don't have a problem with trying to screen yourself from that. Just like I think we had a similar case with the fence behind businesses on Woodward. So I would be for allowing an 8-foot fence. In this case, I would be against it in almost any other case I can think of. But
That'd be a
here,
motion, sir?
yes, well, other people may want to say something first,
Well,
but if
before
not,
you speak really positively or negatively, we should put a motion on the table.
okay, then I'll make a motion to approve this variance.
Second.
We have a second. Any other follow-up comments? Mr. Curtis?
I thought of the exact same thing. We came across behind, and I forget the street name. It had 2 words to it, behind the funeral home on the other side of Woodward. And it was an 8-foot.
That was when I shared in place.
Okay, yes, I knew it had 2 words, yeah. And so I'm in complete agreement that this is exactly where a variance should be considered because of the commercial property. Apartments are commercial properties, and garbage and people walking up to your property, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm in agreement.
Mr. Kroll?
I'm not sure which way I'm headed on this yet. Again, one of my concerns is the aesthetics of living in those apartments, and we have absolutely no control over what the next guy builds. Like I say, if we approve this, we're going to have a yard full of 8, I think it was white fence or something is going here, and then we've got a few doors down, we've got the lattice sticking up. It could become a series of fences that make no sense together, and I kind of hate looking at those, so it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to vote against this, because I certainly am sympathetic with their cause as well, but I have a concern about it.
Well,
Ms. Anderson? Oh, I'm sorry, and then Ms. Zukin. I saw her hand
No,
first, I'm
it's
sorry.
fine.
Well, you'll be looking at it, you won't be looking at it from the side that the apartment complex is on, so that's a good thing. And I did, when I walked up to it, the petitioner is correct in saying that the concrete is crumbling and it's beginning, there's a picture that has some ivy over it, but there's definitely a divot, and we all know how long it takes for those things to get fixed by a corporation or a company. And this way, the homeowner has the ability to repair his as it needs repair. So, I don't know, I'm
So
for this.
you're for this?
I am.
I'm for it too, then.
Ms. Zukin.
I don't have to add anything else. This is, I'm not in favor of fences, and this fence is warranted. I don't think the apartment dwellers have an expectation to look into people's houses and not see a 8-foot fence there, so.
And if I could add, to your point about the whole domino effect, my second house actually backed up to an apartment similar to that in Royal Oak, and at a 6-foot fence, you really feel like you're being impinged upon, because you just have so many people coming and going, and frankly, one of the most frustrating parts about living behind apartment dwellers that just didn't have the same vested interest, waking up on Saturday mornings with some Burger King bags and all sorts of crap in your backyard that just gets thrown over the fence, so this is a case where I think there's certainly a reasonable hardship in place. All right, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. You're all set.
I love the applause.
Yeah, that's great.
We don't usually get applause.
All right. That moves us along to item of new business, item D2, case number F181210, public hearing on the appeal of Tom Driscoll, petitioner and owner for the following variance to the city's fence ordinance, waive 2 feet of the maximum 4-foot permitted fence height, can't talk tonight, within the setback along an east property line adjacent to Campbell Road to install a 6-foot tall site obscuring vinyl fence located at 1620 Midland Boulevard. Mr. Murphy.
This property is located on the corner of Midland and Campbell. You can see in the aerial photograph that the property adjacent has frontage on Campbell, front yard on Campbell. So this particular property technically needs to require a front yard setback or an equal setback to the house adjacent along Campbell. And that would limit the petitioner to putting in place a 4-foot tall fence along that property line adjacent to Campbell. They're looking to erect a 6-foot fence, so they're seeking a waiver of 2 feet from that maximum height of 4 feet in order to do so. The aerial photograph is pretty helpful, and I think there are some useful site photographs as well in the packet for you.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy?
Just a clarification, if I could, that well, you said along Campbell, but also along their backyard.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
That's
so,
correct.
okay.
There, you can see in the photograph, there are some fence posts for a fence that was previously there.
Okay.
This doesn't look like you drew it.
Any other questions? All right, I see the petitioner is present.
Yes,
Floor is
Tom
yours, sir.
Driscoll. I'm the owner, and thanks for considering this. I think anybody who drives down Campbell is familiar with this situation. By my count, less than half have a fence lower than 6 feet. Campbell's a busy road, it's noisy, it's tough even with a fence. There was an existing 6-foot fence there for at least 10 years, wood. We wanted to upgrade to vinyl, and that's when we realized that it didn't meet the requirement. Staff has kind of indicated to me that this is a kind of an understood predicament over here, and look for your assistance on this.
Any questions for the petitioner? Not seeing any, I'm just going to ask you to step aside real quick so I can open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the ZBA on this matter? All right, not seeing anybody, I will go ahead and close the public hearing.
There's a hand in the back.
Oh, I didn't see you, I'm sorry. Please, sir, come forward.
So I'm the adjacent owner, and I see no issue. As he mentioned, there was a fence there before.
What's your name and address for the
I'm
record,
sorry,
sir?
3403 North Campbell, Michael Terrell.
Thank you.
Wow, it's like a Christmas spirit.
Every time.
Any other neighbors?
Anybody else? All right, not seeing any. Now I will close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Kroll,
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve this.
we have a motion?
I'll second.
You have a second? Any discussion?
And we have seen a bunch of these, and there's a built-in hardship when you're on a busy street like Campbell. We always gets us in the side lot and front lot and all that, so I would want to be protected from Campbell if I lived there, so.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, normally against fences, except when it's in this case, when it's the major road like this. So even though there are schools and stuff nearby, this case, there's a lot of major traffic going by, so I think because he's replacing the fence he had, it's not changing the safetiness of what's already there, so I'm not gonna have a problem with it.
Ms. Anderson?
Had 3403 North Campbell's garage been on the other side of the house, I might think differently on it and not be in favor of it, just because of the logistics of possibly being able to see backing out on
Right,
that
the
busy road. But
visibility triangle.
it's a nice long lot, plenty of clearance to see, so.
Anybody else? All right. Yes, ma'am.
It did appear to me, driving up and down Campbell, that most of the houses where it's a side lot facing Campbell, they did have 6-foot high fences. It's just the front-facing ones that didn't.
It's kind of auto, some are side and some are front facing.
Yeah.
It's sort of a mishmash over there. Okay. Not seeing any other comments, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You're all set, sir.
A quick comment. Because staff at the city seems so familiar with this and considered it a slam dunk, and that maybe wording wasn't proper in your ordinance, if you would consider changing it, $300 is 10% of the cost of that fence. That's a little bit rough on something that's a slam dunk. And I would just put that forth to consider in the future.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You should tell them to turn some down, so it's not a slam dunk.
Well, exactly. That's all right.
Next one down,
good
just to show
comment.
that.
All right. That moves us along to our third item of new business, which is item number D3. Case number 181239, public hearing on the appeal of Detroit City Armory LLC petitioner and Jason C. Odom owner for the following variance. A use variance to allow a licensed federal firearms dealer to sell products and services at a single-family dwelling located at 629 South Edgeworth. I'm going to start a little bit differently this time. Instead of going to Mr. Murphy, I'm going to head back here to Ryan.
Thank you. This is a request for a use variance to allow a licensed federal firearms dealer to conduct business at a single-family residence at that location. While this request involves the sale of firearms, firearms are not the issue in this appeal. The issue in this appeal is whether all the requirements for a use variance, which are set forth in section 770-124E1 of the zoning ordinance have been met. Those requirements are as follows. The applicant must present evidence to show that if this chapter is applied strictly, unnecessary hardship to the applicant will result, and that all 5 of the following requirements are met. A, that the property could not be reasonably used for the purposes permitted in that zone. And B, that the appeal results from unique circumstances peculiar to the property and not the general neighborhood conditions. And C, that the use requested by the variance would not alter the essential character of the area. And D, that the alleged hardship has not been created by any person presently having an interest in the property. And E, that the use will preserve a substantial property right possessed by other property owners in the same area. Along those same lines, the issue in this appeal is not if the petitioner's proposed use qualifies as a home occupation under the zoning ordinance. The Planning Division has determined that it does not. Once again, the issue is whether all the requirements for a use variance have been met.
Any questions for the city attorney from the board at this point? Yes, sir.
So this is basically saying the reason why it's coming for use variance is because of it being a business instead of a residency, correct? And is that my understanding, or?
Well, maybe Joseph can answer that.
Sure, we'll chime in a few more comments, and I think that'll probably beg a few more questions. So the petitioner has applied with the U.S. Department of Justice's Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, otherwise known as ATF. And the petitioner is seeking an application for a federal firearms license. The business address that was listed as his single-family residence. The ATF requires, allows applicants that are given the firearms license the ability to sell from their home. They don't have to, but it allows them to be able to sell from that, whether it's a business location. For them, a business location is either commercial atmosphere or, in this case, residential. And the applicant needs to, under the ATF's application, obtain local consent indicating that he or she does in fact have the ability to sell at whatever location they list in their application. Obviously, he listed as single-family residence, and in doing so, we reviewed the zoning ordinance provisions to make sure that he met the definition of a home occupation. There are numerous provisions which define a home occupation in the zoning ordinance, and one of those is that it explicitly states that there cannot be the direct sale of a product or service on the premise. Now, obviously, with that ATF license, it enables you to be able to sell at that location. So we were unable to provide him with our consent that it did in fact meet our definition of a home occupation. So that definition, as Ryan has stated, Mr. Kaluzny has stated, was not, the proposal did not meet the definition. Therefore, it's not a use that's allowed in this particular zoning district, the one-family residential zoning district. So he's seeking a use variance in order to be able to have essentially retail sales in the one-family residential zoning district. And Mr. Kaluzny had pointed out the criteria that the board should utilize for this use variance. So it's not your traditional non-use variance, maybe dimensional or bulk area standards that you typically see. This is in fact a use variance, so would require 6 affirmative votes from the board in order to approve the variance.
Mr. Olfak.
Follow up then. So if this was approved, does this carry through with just this present owner, or say the future owner can then say set up a salon in the house, and the next one set up a restaurant in their house, or something else that it's compounding, and therefore once we grant it, it's just goes with this address forever forward?
The variance does run with the property. However, it's been specifically identified as the intent to sell federal firearms with that particular license. So your approval would be made contingent, or what is being proposed is that. If you did in fact grant the variance, there's a particular ordinance provision that says variances run with the property so long as what you gave the variance for is similar in the future. If someone did want to operate your examples were a hair salon, others, it wouldn't apply because that would be a different proposal than the sale of firearms.
Please, if you have more questions.
Yeah.
Floor is yours.
How many other residencies in the city have sort of a use variance like this? Not necessarily in this case for, say, ATF, but has a business use variance or something like that to run out of their residency?
We don't know that, since we do not require a local license in order to operate a home occupation. If someone is interested in running a home occupation, they would contact our office doing their due diligence, and or go online and check the ordinance provisions to make sure that they were in fact complying with them. Oftentimes they don't come to our attention usually until it's a circumstance that the neighbors complain about, and then code enforcement would be sent out to determine what type of business is actually being operated on the single-family home site, and whether that was compliant with the home occupation ordinance provisions.
Okay. And I was trying to do some research. I couldn't find anyone within the city. I found one person within Pleasant Ridge, one person within Berkeley, and then a bunch in Warren and Southfield and Troy that sell firearms, possibly within or without their residency. Is there any other that are registered within the city?
Not that I'm aware of, and that does bring up the point that there were a number of comments that our office had received from residents and concerned citizens that were included via email, that were included in your packet at the end of it. And the petitioner today had provided some additional information for you, which was a tallied list from, I believe, 2016 that listed all of our firearms license holders within the state of Michigan. You could probably do a quick search right at your computer now to see if there are any in Royal Oak, other than the commercial enterprises.
There's 2 on Woodward. I didn't see any.
They were
Commercial
just,
enterprises.
they were just
That was the only
commercial
2 that
enterprises.
existed.
But none residency. Okay. I think that's all the questions I have for right now.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, not seeing any. Mr. Odom, I assume?
I am, yes.
Floor is yours, sir.
Hey, good evening, board. Thank you for your time in advance. I just want to thank, first off, Joe for being so amazing through the process and being patient with me, and also Mr. Kaluzny of stepping up and kind of reiterating and setting the tone that this is not about firearms. It's about literally a use variance, and whether or not my license and holding my license at my property would be a detriment to the community and the neighbors around me. I want to clarify a couple points that were made already. I'm not opening up a gun shop in my house. That's not happening, and I think that might be the thought of most people. And the way that it reads in the flyer that went out, that seems like it's exactly what I'm doing. There's many FFLs that operate in the state of Michigan, and they handle businesses in very different ways. Each of them do different things. Some of them sell firearms. Some of them simply do transfers. Some of them do nothing more than gunsmithing. So my point being is that we all do different things. In answer to your question, Anthony asked about how many FFL holders there are in the state of Michigan or in the surrounding communities. There's over 2,500 of us in the state of Michigan. The vast majority, I would say 95% of those FFLs are not gun stores. There's 2 of them that operate in the city of Royal Oak. One of them would be Target Sports on Woodward, and the other one is Dunham's, which we know is no longer there. That's right at 13 Mile and Woodward. I think this FFL still holds, but the brick and mortar shop is not there. So, point being is, I believe the reason they don't is because it's a very hard process with the city of Royal Oak to go through that to actually have a variance. In all retrospect, the ATF requires me to have a use variance, or I shouldn't say that. Let's not say use variance. The ATF requires approval from the city that I am adhering to all zoning regulations at my property in order to hold my license. The way I'm going to handle my business is I don't really even need my property to do business. All of my transactions are done online. I'm able to operate at gun shows. I'm able to send firearms out to other FFLs across the country. And in my travels across the country, I can buy and sell firearms in other states. So it isn't really that I'm operating a retail business out of my property, because it's simply not true, because I'm not. I do have the ability, which as Joseph said, to have people come to my home. I don't plan on doing that. I don't plan on having a website. I don't plan on advertising it. I'm not changing my property whatsoever. I'm not even keeping any retail inventory at my property at all. Many of the surrounding communities have FFLs. There's some in Berkeley. There's many in Warren, Hazel Park. I know there's some in Ferndale as well that operate without consent of the city, because they just simply don't need consent to my knowledge. And neighbors are none the wiser. They're just like you and me. They're just like everyday people. Most citizens in the United States, believe it or not, don't get their firearms from gun shops. They don't get them from Walmart. They get them from private FFLs, or what we like to call kitchen table FFLs, just like me. So that's my case there. I believe all of you have my questionnaire and my answers to that. I don't plan on changing the property whatsoever. I'm fully gainfully employed as a Tier 1 supplier to General Motors, but I did recently take this job, and it's caused me some financial hardship in my life as far as switching positions to get back in Royal Oak. I've lived here for 10 years. I've traveled all around the country, so my hopes would be to have this side job to produce some additional income in that. If I wasn't able to have the license tied to my place of business, which would be my house as the ATF sees fit, I'd be forced to get a brick and mortar store, which simply wouldn't make sense to me, and it also doesn't make sense to 95% of the other 2,500 FFLs that operate in the state of Michigan either. It just doesn't make sense as far as the minute amount of business that we actually do. So in that case, let's see, what else do I have to say here? I made some notes, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, in retrospect, just to kind of wrap it all up, I simply want to be allowed to do what all the other citizens in our surrounding communities are already allowed to do, as the email that I sent Joseph to forward to you all allows into conduct business. Again, the property's not changing as well as I could say, and there you go. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any
Yeah.
questions for the petitioner?
Questions? Yes, please.
I have one question. You said you're not going to be selling any guns out of your house, but in your questionnaire, you said mainly it's going to be online, but there will be occasional customers coming to your house to pick up.
Right. So what happens is, if the way many FFLs work is they simply do transfers. So if, for instance, if you were in another state and you went to a gun shop or an FFL or whatnot, you're from the state of Michigan, you can't buy a gun in, say, Texas. They would have to ship it to a person like me in Michigan to actually conduct the transfer, because I'd be licensed federally, I reside in the state of Michigan, and I'm responsible for doing background checks for the transfer of that firearm. So many FFLs, in fact, if I say the vast majority of them, don't actually even sell guns. All we do is transfer firearms to people. So the federal government, ATF in specific, has done a thorough background check. I think it's take me over 6 months to get. You have to jump through a ton of hoops, which I don't want to go through again. The process is pretty strict. I have to provide paperwork to the chief of police here in Royal Oak, and it's extensive. After that background check comes back, they allow you to conduct business. So it's not the fact that I'm selling guns or have a retail shop. It's simply just the transfer of firearms in many cases. I do have the ability to have someone come to my house to pick up a transfer, though, yes.
Any other questions?
How
Yes, sir.
often-
Oh, Mr. Opek was first, I think Mr. Kroll.
Because I know invariably, probably someone from the audience will probably ask it, but, or state something along the lines of this will cause their neighborhood to be unsafer. Can you speak to that?
Simply not true. There's no evidence to show that. We're allowed to have guns. Luckily, we live in a free society. It's our Second Amendment right. You all are allowed, considering you're not, convicted criminals or whatnot. We're all allowed to have as many firearms as we want, without our neighbors dictating that. In fact, anyone that comes to me has to go through a background check. We have to purchase legally. The person that's going to make your neighborhood unsafe is the person that's selling guns illegally, which would not be me.
Mr. Kroll?
That was pretty much what I...
Any other questions for the petitioner?
One other,
Yeah, please.
how often would you see someone coming to pick up a gun?
Honestly, I would say maybe once to twice a month, if that. No more than, you have Amazon trucks, FedEx trucks, UPS trucks, mail trucks driving down the streets all day long. I work from home some days. It's going to create a 90% less nuisance than any delivery of that kind would. So traffic is not an issue.
What is the profile of the people picking up these guns?
Just like you or me. Anyone sitting here, anyone in this audience, regular, everyday people.
All right, any other questions?
I would say there is no profile.
All right, not seeing any, then I'm going to ask you to take a seat.
Thank you for your
You
time.
might be sitting for a little while. I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing, and again, please do your best to stick to the 3 minutes, and again, we're going to hear arguments on both sides of this. Please be respectful of everybody's opinions, no shouting over people, no being disrespectful. Let's keep this as nice as we can. I'm sorry? During the holiday season, yes. Well, I will start right here. I see a lady in a red sweater.
Good evening. It's been a long one. My name is Rosemary Couture. I would kindly ask if you could give me 5 minutes, because I'm speaking on behalf of like 35 people that we had a meeting with last week, and I would like to...
Are those people present?
Yeah,
raise your hands, everybody, who she's speaking for.
All right. That seems fair. Good deal.
Take your time.
Can you hear me all right? I'm short. Okay. I am here tonight representing approximately 35 homeowners, primarily from the affected neighborhoods, Edgeworth, Kenwood, and Minerva Avenues that attended a meeting at the evening of December 4th at the Senior Center here in Royal Oak. This is not a Second Amendment issue for us. This is a zoning issue for us. We respectfully ask that the ZBA deny this applicant's request for a zoning variance. Our reasons are as follows. One, we have a zoning for a reason. It is to keep our neighborhoods as neighborhoods. The home occupation proposed by the applicant would would change the residential character of our neighborhood by creating a commercial enterprise within a home that involves heavily regulated products that can pose a danger to others. Number two, a use variance permitting non-residential traffic would create an undesirable precedent and cause significant impact to the city's residential neighborhoods by increasing the amount of traffic on local and residential streets. Furthermore, the use variance stays with the property. It does not move with the person, and it cannot be rescinded. The number of sales and hours, number three, of operation proposed by the applicant are extremely difficult to monitor for compliance. If the use variance is granted, what the applicant says they are going to do regarding business plan of the operation is not enforceable. Therefore, there will be no oversight by anyone. Number four, no hardship has been established, and any alleged hardships would be self-created. Number five, the applicant has not demonstrated that unique characteristics of the property are causing his plight. Number six, conforming with the zoning regulations would not be unnecessarily burdensome. Number seven, firearm dealerships are traditionally located in very secure commercial settings, isolated from the residential dwellings and residential uses. Proper security cannot be ensured in a residential home. Number eight, I only have 9. Number 8, the chance of increased crime around this business is something that must be considered. Federal licensing is public, which will make it easier for people to target the applicant's home as well as the surrounding neighborhood. We live in an established, densely populated neighborhood with close proximity to I-75 and 696. Number 9, in their letter to the ZBA, the applicant states that there will be no signs posted outside the home. However, Michigan law dictates otherwise. A federally licensed dealer must also post notice conspicuously at the entrances, exits, and points of sale on the premises of his or her business, stating, and in quotes, "You may be criminally and civilly liable for any harm caused by a person less than 18 years of age who lawfully gains unsupervised access to your firearm if unlawfully stored." Granting the use variance would set a precedent. Royal Oak would gain the reputation of being friendly to residential firearms dealers. Property values would be affected. Potentially, home buyers may not want to invest or live in a neighborhood known to have gun dealers selling firearms out of their homes. For all these reasons stated, we therefore ask that a use variance of any kind be denied. Respectfully submitted on behalf of the residents on South Edgeworth, where my property is, South Kenwood, and South Minerva. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ma'am, do you actually, please don't applause. Do you happen to have a list of all those names? Did you get a signed list of people?
No,
Oh,
we
okay,
didn't do
okay.
that, and we didn't take photos or anything like, we didn't take roll call or anything,
All
so
right,
we
no
just
worries.
had
If you had the list, I was
gang
going to ask just to circulate it, but no
Yeah,
big deal.
yeah.
All right, thank you so much. All
Okay, thank you.
right, and who would like to go next? In the back.
LLC, like...
Sir, I need your name and address for the record, please.
I am Jonah Kubicek. I live at 105 Aqua Court.
Thank you.
A LLC, like Detroit Armory, is a limited liability company, meaning the members or owners are protected from some or all liability for acts of the LLC, so individual owners will be harder to hold responsible in the inevitable incidents that will come from the selling of firearms in a private residence. This business endeavor has been called a side job to make some extra money. If that was true, Detroit Armory would not be an LLC, because small LLCs statistically face a much lower chance of making profit and acquiring capital. In many states, a PLLC, or professional limited liability company, must be formed if the service provided by the company requires a license. As already said, in this country, a prospective gun seller must register to sell with the Bureau of Alcohol and Firearms and Tobacco, and then track and report all sales. Therefore, to offer the services of a gun seller, Detroit Armory LLC must become a PLLC, as registration is required. The stark difference in this case between a PLLC and LLC that is alarming is that PLLC members are not shielded from malpractice claims. The reason that Detroit Armory is an LLC rather than a PLLC is because the owner of the company is very much aware that the inevitable victims of his product and their families may choose to hold him as a seller and individual accountable, which they aren't able to do unless the business becomes a PLLC instead of hiding behind the shield of an LLC. The business model proposed here today is highly flawed, dangerous, and possibly illegal. Regulations are in place for a reason, and in this instance, they have not been followed. This process has been rushed, and the board and the Royal Oak community needs to take the necessary precautions before something of this nature is even considered. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And again, folks. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Paula Mante. I live in Royal Oak on Curry Avenue. I'd like to know, it seems to me a very simple equation. It's a mathematical equation. To eliminate your hardship, Mr. Odom, if you
direct your comments to us, not to the petitioner.
If he sold more guns, then he'd be able to earn more money, and he'd be able to have enough money to earn rent to rent a retail facility. So I think if there's a hardship that he's trying to explain as the reason that he needs to sell out of his home, I don't think that's valid. And I think that he's requesting, or he's estimating he's going to sell 1 or 2 a month. If he sells 1 or 2 a month, this is hardly going to earn him any money. I'm a small business owner. I've opened 3 businesses with my husband. I've opened 1 myself. And you need money to start a business. You need money to afford rent, there's overhead, and I don't think the hardship that he's describing has anything to do with, this to me sounds more like a hobby than it does a full-time job. He's described it as a part-time job. There are ways to avoid that hardship, and that is just to sell more guns. So if he sells more guns, I have a problem with that. And that's it.
Thank you so much. And who wants to go next? I see a hand over here in back left.
My name is Lindsay Warren. I'm at 1137 Pinehurst in Royal Oak. I brought a few friends with me who share my concerns. I just have a long list of questions that you guys may have already addressed with the petitioner, but I wanted to bring them forward as our concerns. So first one being, will the petitioner, in addition to selling firearms, sell ammunition out of his home? Next question would be, how will buyers transport the firearms that they purchase from his home? Will buyers be able to try out the firearms that they purchase on site? A very important question that was high on our list is, what security measures will he put in place in his home to protect the ones that he's got on site? And following up, in line with that is, what impact will this business have on theft in the area? The background question I have is, he says he's going to do them, which I trust he will. Are they getting done ahead of the sale, at the time of pickup, or when? And then what happens if the buyer actually fails it? Next question is, what are the current restrictions on businesses in that zone? And what is the expected impact on traffic? I know he's saying he only may sell 1 or 2, but if he's approved, he can sell as many as he wants, correct? How much parking is available? How much parking would he anticipate he needs? How will these firearms be stored and secured in his home? How many does he actually expect to have on his premises at any given time? And two questions that are really important to me personally as a mother is, what is the distance of his home to Oakland Elementary, the Boys and Girls Club, daycares in the area, and of course parks? And then lastly, how many children are right in his direct neighborhood? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And who wants to go next?
No clapping's working really well, by the way.
My name is Jennifer Rossback. I'm at 4149 Sheffield Road in Royal Oak. My biggest concern with this petitioner is that ordinance staying with his home so that future gun sellers can continue to sell out of that premise. To me, that's a vote of no. I do not want that in my community. I don't think the rest of Royal Oak wants that in their community. And because of this special variance and because of his licensing with ATF, he does have to take people coming to his home to sell guns. And I don't particularly, again, want that in my community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And who would like to speak next? Yes, sir.
You guys get one more, make it the best one.
Good evening. My name is George Boris. I live at 505 Catalpa. My concern, again, is with the request for a use variance. I understand the petitioner has made some comments regarding other, I believe the term was FFLs, and trying to broadly apply those. I think in certain circumstances, if you're living in rural America, far from your neighbors, maybe that would be acceptable, but in this community where we have people close by, the use of residents to sell firearms, I think, is completely irresponsible. If this petitioner was looking to change a commercial site for his business, I'd be more than open-minded to that. I have grave concerns that somebody should not be allowed to sell firearms out of their home for the purpose of this side business. Should other people become aware of this matter, I know he says he doesn't advertise. There's always a risk of what might happen with somebody trying to gain access to gain those firearms. And as a member of this community, I'm concerned with that. And again, it comes down to the use issue, and I really would like to see you guys not approve the petition to use it out of a residential area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. And who would like to go next? Did I see a hand? Yep.
Okay, down to the end here.
Hi, Raynette Richards, 520 South Edgeworth. I'm in sight of the property, and for safety concerns, I hope you turn it down. Sorry, I hate public speaking.
Take your time.
Just for safety concerns, and it opens a floodgate for other possibilities, what we wouldn't want in the neighborhood.
All right, thank you, ma'am. And who's next? I see a hand over here on the left.
You can come up, you can be next.
Deb Campbell, East University. I'm opposed to granting this use variance. While I do not live in the immediate area, I am passionate about the protection of the city's, our city's master plan and zoning ordinance affords homeowners within single-family neighborhoods. The home where I have lived for the past 25 years is located with the inner ring of single-family neighborhoods adjacent to our bustling downtown. Over the years, strict adherence to the zoning ordinance has effectively halted the intrusion of incompatible commercial uses from negatively impacting our neighborhood, which in turn has encouraged strong investment, rising property values, and protection of quality of life and safety. In Royal Oak's master plan, the neighborhood preservation and residential land use, the #1 stated goal is to preserve and enhance existing neighborhoods as a foundation of a strong community. Objective 1.1, to preserve and maintain and enhance the character of existing neighborhoods by establishing clear and understandable boundaries between residential areas and non-residential areas. Objective 1.5, to promote safety and security through the management of traffic volumes which are detrimental to residential neighborhoods. The definition of home occupation states customers may not visit the single-family dwelling to obtain a product or service. Granting this use variance is in direct conflict with the goals and objectives of the master plan. If approved, the use variance would alter the residential character of the neighborhood by creating an island of commercial activity surrounded by single-family residences. The transient nature of sales and transfer of product allowed by federal licensure would encourage higher volumes of traffic not associated with the area to travel in and out of the neighborhood that would not otherwise have reason for intrusion. The applicant states there will be occasional visit to the home by a customer for purposes of pickup and transfer. What is the legal definition of occasional, and who does the burden fall upon to monitor and enforce customer transactions at this home? If the use variance is granted, what the applicant says they are going to do regarding the day-to-day business plan of operation is not enforceable or subject to oversight. The use variance combined with federal licensure would allow the applicant to stock product and sell and conduct business transactions as often and whenever they want at this address. Furthermore, the use variance stays with the land. It does not move with the person. I respectfully request the Zoning Board of Appeals deny this applicant's request for a use variance. No hardship at all has been established by the petitioner. Any alleged hardship is self-created, and none of the 5 requirements for approval are met. A use variance permitting residential sales and service would not only alter the essential character of the neighborhood in question, it would create an undesirable precedent that would have negative ramifications for a single-family neighborhood citywide. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, that's somebody who practiced this speech all his life.
Hi, I'm Deborah Olszewski off Woodsboro in Royal Oak. I just had a quick thought. With deliveries to the home from FedEx or UPS, if he's got another job, is he home? Are the boxes on the porch? And we know there's an issue with boxes being lifted off porches as it is. Are they secure? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Again, folks, please try and refrain from applause. And who would like to go next? In the back.
We got time for 2 more. 2 more, I think.
Hi, my name's Denise Tingley, and I live on South Minerva. I was not able to make it to that meeting. Yes, there are a lot of trucks that come on our street to deliver things. Let me see. Christmas is only 2 weeks away. When I've been home, it's only during this time of the year that it is as severe as it is. People already go fast enough down my street as it is. I was out raking my leaves the other day to put them in the street, and I thought I was going to get hit because somebody was going way too fast. Bringing more traffic into our area. I have no problem with people having guns. I have no problem with any of that kind of thing. My thing is changing the zone in a residential area is a problem for me. There's children in my neighborhood. There's elderly people in my neighborhood. There are just too many people that can be affected by this. And I, from personal experience, have had friends that have issues in their neighborhoods that they've almost been hit by stray bullets and things going in their area. So having more guns, more things in our area, I just don't feel comfortable with it. And that's just what I have to say.
Thank you. All right, and who would like to go next? Anybody? Yes, sir.
You don't have to. Oh.
We got it.
Clark Campbell, East University, Royal Oak. Zoning Board members, good evening. A variance is the exception, not the rule. Variances are to be granted for reason of hardship as a result of an anomaly in the property. The petitioner lives in a single-family residential area. We have rules and regulations for those areas. What they want to do is not allowed, plain and simple. If they wish to conduct a business, they should get a storefront in a commercial area for that purpose. There is no hardship. Any perceived hardship in this case is self-inflicted. Please do what you all were appointed to do When you evaluate this request against the basic reasons for granting a variance, the decision has to be to deny this request. Thank you for your time and service to the city.
Thank you, sir. And who'd like to go next? Anybody?
Nobody, going once, going twice. Oh.
Hi, my name's Amy Craig. I live at 625 South Edgeworth. I live right next door to Mr. Odom. I know this is a really hot button issue because of the firearms issue. I have had the not luxury, but a healthy respect for firearms because I grew up around them. My father was an amateur gunsmith, and I think that one of the things that's being lost in this conversation about Mr. Odom's variance is that he is not, as he said in his opening, he's not looking to sell massive amounts of firearms out of his home or have people come to his house. Gunsmithing is such a wide-ranging hobby, as he said earlier. You can work on gun parts and you can work on whole firearms. You can choose to work on either or both. It doesn't matter. Like you said, he's applying for the variance. It doesn't matter necessarily what it is, as long as, like Mr. Murphy said earlier, there's so many home businesses that are operated out of the homes in Royal Oak that are not regulated because people don't decide to come to City Hall and get their variances that they need to. Mom-to-mom sales, anything. You could even say like Pampered Chef. Now, they are not guns, which I totally understand. That's a totally different thing. Anytime I've been in Mr. Odom's home, he has displayed the utmost competency and respect for his ownership. Anybody talking about safety issues or people coming to the house, guns are in your neighborhood no matter what. I myself own firearms. My husband owns firearms. We treat them with respect and the healthy respect that they need, and we store them properly and safely. And as long as people do that, and you follow the rules that you're supposed to follow, it shouldn't be the issue that it is. But because it is, so many people have such a fear of firearm ownerships and firearms in general, I think that sometimes people who just want to make a living doing certain parts of gun sales or gunsmithing kind of get a bad rap. We had an armed robbery of the people who live directly, it doesn't say their address, but the people directly across the street from us just last summer. Of no one that lived on our street, simply because, as the woman said earlier, we are adjacent to I-75 and 696, and it's an easy on, easy off. Those people are the nicest people in the world. They have coexist stickers on their bumper stickers. Like, they're the people who love everyone. They're the people who are great, and they got robbed at gunpoint on a Sunday morning at 8:30, and they weren't selling any guns. In fact, all the people with guns were across the street. So I think I understand that as far as Jason Odom's variance is concerned, it's going to be hard to get that passed tonight. I think that there's no doubt about that. None of us are under any illusion that it's probably going to be passed, simply because it is hard for him to show hardship. But I would say that there is an ability to grant an exception to this rule at this point in time. That's it. That's all I was going to say.
Thank you so much. Anybody else in the far back?
Hello, zoning board members. My name's Marie Catanzaro. I live on Wellesley, which is close to Mr. Odom's house. And as a rebuttal to his neighbor, I would like to remind the board that what has been reiterated already, that if the zoning use variance is passed, there is no oversight. So while the petitioner can say, I might only sell 1 or 2 guns, maybe 1 or 2 people occasionally would come to my house, there's no way to enforce that. And there's no one who's going to have oversight and who's going to say, oh, Mr. Odom, you had 3 people this month instead of the 1 or 2 that you said. So I would just like to remind the board of that. And in our area, again, it is a very densely populated residential area. We have a lot of older people, as many people have said. We have children, and we just don't need that kind of thing, for lack of a better word, in our area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And who's next? Anybody?
Call.
Going once, going twice? Oh, in the back.
Hi, my name's Elliot Wood. I live at 812 North Blair Avenue. I came up here with Jonah earlier to state something that I felt was important, but then I figured he covered it. But for me, listening to this, watching the conversation move, I sort of recognized that it got a little off topic here, and people are talking about what should be done, what shouldn't be done, what could be done, what is going to be enforced, what isn't. And my conscience just kept coming back to a phrase that I heard uttered at the beginning of this hearing, and that was he has to prove that this variance will not alter the essential character of this area. And so I would like to present a piece that I saw mentioned by some of the people who have came up to this board today, and also that I saw online on a discussion forum that Taylor DeRosa over there showed me. So I saw these comments and I was like, is this what it's going to come down to? Is this the sentiments that people have on this sort of, venture? And a man named Bill Corsout, who lives in Royal Oak, commented on a forum on the app Nextdoor, there is no justification for denial. If he sold penthouse magazines online, I bet some would find that to complain about also. I guarantee that if he had just done this without doing it the legit way, nobody would have known any differently. If this is denied, then there are a ton of other home businesses that should be also. And then a man named Rick Seymour, who also lives in Royal Oak, agreed with those sentiments. And for me personally, this kind of personal evidence shows that if you're talking about breaking federal regulations, not only breaking Royal Oak zoning regulations that have to be passed in this room, this case has already altered the essential character of this area. So I do not believe that there should be any further discussion on whether this should be allowed, whether this shouldn't be allowed. The character has been altered, and if this is passed, the character will be more altered. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? I'll get back to you, sir. All right, not seeing anybody, going once, going twice. All right, I will go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And Mr. Odom, why don't you come back up here since you sat there patiently as a human punching bag, and if you want to address some of those points, please. And direct your comments this way.
Sure, yeah, no, I realize this is a hot topic, and I can totally agree with that, and I understand it. I think there's a lot of misinformation that was construed, and I understand that nobody wants a business operating out of their house and in their neighborhood or next to them that would cause any kind of traffic. Let me just reiterate to the board that this is not about firearms. I know people, it's a very polarizing issue. You're either for them or you're against them. There's very few of us in between, and I understand that. And I want to reiterate some of the comments before is, the hardship here is I'm not interested in supplementing my entire income with firearms. That's not the point. I have insurance through my job. I have a full-time job. I want to supplement the income that I lost from my previous job. And that would be my hardship if I were forced to buy a brick-and-mortar store. And again, there's over 2,500 FFLs that operate, many, I would say 95% of them out of their homes without the knowledge of their neighbors, with no traffic to the community, without degrading the community around them at all, and being safe. So that's really the point I'm trying to make here. There was a couple comments about me selling 1 or 2 firearms a month. That's not the case. I'm not necessarily selling firearms. I'm transferring firearms, many of which will be done online, where a person doesn't even need to come to my house. So when I said there might be 1 or 2 people coming to my house, that doesn't mean that I'm only going to sell 1 or 2 firearms or do 1 or 2 transfers. I could transfer a firearm from the state of Michigan to Texas without that firearm even coming to my house, period. So the point being here is if I'm not granted this, I'm not allowed to have my license at all to conduct business, regardless of my house. In my personal opinion, I don't even need my house. The only reason that I'm here is because the ATF requires me to have a physical place of business. Just like a Tupperware salesperson has, or someone that does the multi-level marketing or sells cosmetics out of their home and has customers. It's the same idea, except I don't really need people to come to my house. It's just a requirement of the ATF. So that's my point here, is that it's not going to cause any undue stress to the neighborhood around us. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Did you want to, someone had a nice long list of questions, some of them concern safety, like packages being received, how is that going to occur? Bullets or ammunition, number of firearms and stuff. Do you want to address?
Sure, yeah, I can address those. I'm not selling ammunition. I'm not into that. With all firearm sales, they cannot leave anything on the porch. It's got to be signed for. I don't even have to do transfers at my house. I'm allowed to go do transfers at gun shops. I can do transfers at gun shows. Like I said, I don't have to even have people come to my house. I'm just saying a what-if scenario. If there was an instance, and I believe also the young lady gave the question this, is what if someone comes and they are denied? Well, what happens is if they get denied, there's a 3-day waiting period. That would be the instance where they would then have to come to my house. For instance, if I sold at a gun show and you got delayed, I don't want to say denied. If you're denied, you don't get it. If you get delayed, there's a 3-day period of which I cannot transfer the firearm. In that case, we're no longer at the gun show. Then you would have to come to my house to pick up that firearm. But that's not my first mode of transfer, is for a bunch of folks to come to my house, driving down the street and knocking on my door. I don't have business hours. They would have to call and make an appointment specifically with me. As far as storage goes and safety, I do what every other responsible gun owner should be doing, is keeping my firearms in a safe and having a security system. We're all vulnerable to break-ins, and I think everybody should do that if they have firearms.
The floor is still yours.
Yeah, you mentioned the ATF is the one that's requiring you to have a physical location, right?
Correct.
So, and a P.O. box doesn't count, right?
It does not, no.
Okay. That's what
If that counted, I wouldn't be here, because that would be fine by me.
All right, and who's next? Mr. Kroll.
I don't have any more questions.
Can I say one more thing? Let me reiterate. I would want to be clear on the purpose of FFLs. For instance, let's say I'm going to give you a case scenario. Let's say Joe gets a nice new hunting rifle and he's got a scope or a trigger that he needs to get put in. I can't legally take possession of his firearm and do that work unless I'm a licensed FFL. So he comes, hey, Jason, I want you to go put on this scope for me or this trigger job. He can then give me his gun. I can keep it, do the work, and then return it to him. That's just one aspect of being an FFL. So it's not just about selling firearms out of your property. There's many different facets of having an FFL license.
Yes, sir.
I just realized I have a question that actually might be a really important one. If this is denied, what does that cause to your FFL?
I don't get it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't get it, or I'd be forced, in this case, getting a brick and mortar shop, which I don't want to do. I don't have the money for that. That is the hardship. I would not be able to get my license. And in that case, I don't want to move out of the city of Royal Oak, but that would be a viable option for me. I've lived in this town for 10 years. I love living here.
Mr. Odom?
Yes.
I have a question. Did you explore, I know in my law office, where your father used to work, I think.
Oh, okay. West Big Beaver?
Yeah, that's where.
Yeah, I was there today. That's where I work for GP Strategies. So we're in the same building.
Well, we rent space out to people that don't physically stay there.
Right.
They might have to pay $100 a month, $200 a month. It gives them an address for their business, an address to transact business with people that come in. Did you ever explore something like that?
Sure. I thought about that and I explored that, and the amount of income that I'm trying to make up on a yearly basis, I would say would be between maybe $5,000 to $10,000 going out. If it progressed where even my online sales or being at gun shows where it transpired that, hey, this is taking off, I wouldn't work out of my house, and that's what I would do. But at this point in time, what I'm telling the board is that's not what I wish to do. I don't wish to go that route. I don't wish to have that high of volume, even though I'm interested in making up a bit of income on it. The idea is for me not to have this be a full-fledged retail business, like you say. But yeah, in answer to your question, yes, I have explored that, and financially it doesn't make financial sense because I believe I would be almost breaking even at that point in time.
Yes, ma'am.
Currently, when you go to gun shows, what are those transactions like?
Sure. Well, you just, everything's done, you can do it online. As far as the background checks go, it goes through the NICS system, which is through the FBI. And you provide the information for the person. They sign a sheet and agree to a bunch of check marks on there, and they go through a database and they get an instant background check. At a gun show, you would simply, pay a fee for the booth, and you being an FFL, you get to operate there. So the idea of the so-called gun show loophole simply does not exist if you are an FFL. You have to do background checks for everybody.
So the people who have the FFLs, they still have to have some bricks and mortar place someplace, is that what you're saying?
Most all of those people that operate at gun shows have FFLs that are linked to their home residences, yes. And I provided Joseph with a list of those. There's over 2,500 of them in the state of Michigan. There's tens of thousands of them all throughout the country. Those are what we like to call just kitchen table FFLs that do exactly what I want to do and have that license linked to their house, even though those people don't even do any business out of their home. They're mobile. They're selling online, which is 95% of the business that I plan on doing.
And how long have you been doing this business? Have you been doing any of this type of business prior to now by maybe using someone else's?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I use FFLs when I purchase and sell guns all the time. I don't have an FFL right now, so I don't have to do a background check. If I wanted to sell a gun to somebody right now that came to my house, there is no background check. Mind you, if it's a long gun, if it's a handgun, you do. But a long gun, I can just sell them a gun. There is no background check. So in this case, it's even more highly regulated that we have FFLs. There are FFLs around the area in Berkeley and Warren. There's a few that I deal with in Clawson that work right out of their homes that do exactly what I want to do, and I've operated with them before and done business with them before. Yeah, and they don't cause any kind of. In fact, I would be very surprised that their neighborhood even knows what they're doing because it's inconspicuous. It doesn't have any effect on surrounding neighbors or property.
Any other questions? And I will remind the board, I think we're sort of drifting a little bit into his business when we're really sort of talking about a use variance. So I think we've sort of drifted.
And if they're, and I don't know, in speaking with Joseph, and I asked, what the ATF requires. All the ATF requires is basically in writing that say that I adhere to the zoning ordinances of the city of Royal Oak. Whether that's a use variance or whether it's something else that you can grant me on a probationary period is fine with me. And if it's a detriment, we can revisit it in a year if you're comfortable with that too.
Mr. Curtis? Oh, I thought I saw your hand.
I'm ready for a motion.
Yeah.
Well, does somebody want to offer one?
I will offer one.
All right, Mr. Kroll?
I would make a motion to deny.
Oh, support.
A lot of different thoughts running through my mind up here. One is, I think this is really overblown tonight. However, you haven't come close to give us a hardship. We are not a board to decide emotionally if we want to, I mean, in my mind, you sell wedding cakes. And I tried all the time to take guns out of this, because obviously guns is a fairly explosive term these days.
Sure.
But you didn't have a hardship to sell wedding cakes. We do preserve the neighborhoods. And I know it's a great reaction. I'm not envisioning a bunch of AR-16s being shot out in your lawn by any means. On the other hand, the only thing this board can decide is hardships. That's what we deal in. Everybody comes in front of us, wants to break the law. Some have a hardship that we can get behind and grant a variance. I've not heard anywhere near a hardship tonight.
I suppose what would constitute a hardship other than a financial one?
Well, financial is not a hardship. Is it good for the neighborhood and you? Great for you, doesn't sound like it's really good for the neighborhood. Can you use the property as it currently sits? Yes, it's a house, right? It's not a gun shop, it's a house. You can use it for that.
Why don't you go step by step and sort of speak to your
Okay,
motion?
so I said, the property could be reasonably used for purposes permitted in that zone. Yes, it can be. That the appeal results from unique circumstances peculiar to the property and not in general neighborhood conditions. I mean, you're not even coming close to any of these. That the use requested by the variance would not alter the essential character of the area. that the alleged hardship has not been created by any person presently having interest in the property. You've totally created the hardship. That the use variance, that the use will preserve a substantial property right possessed by other property owners in the same zone. And again, a lot of people showed up tonight to say that's not the case. So I really try not to let mob rule. The more people out there doesn't really sway my decision. I kind of felt this right from the beginning. Why would we put a gun shop in the middle of a neighborhood? And I realize not a gun shop. I understand what you're trying to do. However, in our life, in our terms, it's a gun shop in the middle of the neighborhood. We can't control it any further than that. And for that reason, I have to absolutely deny it.
Can I?
We're on this side of the table, sir.
Oh.
Well, who's the support? Okay, yeah, then the floor is yours, sir.
Really close, but I think I beat him up. He tried, yeah. I was going to go through the same things, just like.
Well, if you want to reiterate those points, please do.
Okay, well, of course, the property can still be used as a single-family dwelling. There's no reason it can't. There's nothing on the circumstances of the property. Normally, circumstances are things like a triangular lot trying to put a square house on it. You come too close to a corner. But there's nothing here that applies to that kind of thing as to what you want to do. Result in unique circumstances of the neighborhood. This is a standard small home on a lot in Royal Oak. There's nothing unique about it. That the use requested would be alter the essential character of the area. It might or might not. There's one that I can't say plus, pro or con on that one even. That the use would preserve substantial property rights of the owner. It doesn't preserve any rights. The right of an owner in a single-family dwelling neighborhood is that you can live in it with a single family. That's basically it. The real issue here doesn't have to do with guns or if you made earrings and sold at craft shows. It's that if we give a use variance, we have altered the neighborhood. We have said a business can occur in this house, period. It isn't, again, making something and taking them somewhere else to sell. It's making that property different. We did these zonings to protect single-family neighborhoods from having businesses in them, whatever they were. And that's, to me, how I have to look at it, is why would I give a use variance in a single-family neighborhood like this? And I can't see any one of the reasons we're supposed to use to weigh that is on the plus side of that idea.
Did I see you next, Mr. Curtis?
Bob, I'm glad you beat me. That was well said. That's it.
All right, Ms. Anderson.
Well, I just wanted to say that some of my questions had to do with trying to maybe open some other avenues for the petitioner that I'm sure you've thought of, but possibly, who knows. I knew many people who are gunsmiths and things like that back when we lived in Montana and up in northern Michigan. Great people. They were doing it all legally too. Unfortunately, in this case, that to get a use variance, that's the hardest thing that ever comes in front of the board, for the most part. You have to have more people vote for it to get it by. And also, you can't pick and choose the use. There's 5 criteria. You can't just pick and choose 1 or 2 that might fit you. Every single one has to work. And in this case, it just doesn't, unfortunately.
Can I ask why in our surrounding communities are these FFLs able to operate, but in the city of Royal Oak, we can't do it?
It's their zoning laws, not our zoning laws.
We don't speak to other communities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably because they're sloppy.
Mr. Olfak.
I think Mr. Miller has brought up some great points, as well as everyone else has. As I was trying to find out from Joseph, is how many businesses are there in residential, and as he explained, there's none that's registered. So yes, you might have the Tupperware, the Pampered Chef, the Mary Kay, all throughout there, and they're operating illegally, but they're doing stuff that normally would go on, and this is sort of like that, but sort of not like that. But I agree that residency is residency. If it needed to be a business, it either could have an off-site address, even if it's a one whole room in some place, or if it's in a business district, maybe in the multi-use district, he might be lucky enough to get away with it because it's multi-use and not a single family. So because of that, unfortunately, I agree. There's no way that it's met all these hardships and proven that it should be granted.
Anybody else? Well, I think it's pretty much all been said, so I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. The motion is to deny the variance request. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, sir. I'm sorry. Please, no applause. Yeah, turned down a business owner. I don't want applause. We just did our job. All right. Why don't we take a quick, 2-minute recess, let the room clear out. Yeah, so.
Nice seeing you all.
For a federal license, Royal Oak saying it's okay. If it had been any other kind of business, he wouldn't have had to, therefore he wouldn't have had to come for a variance. And everything illegal.
I may come before you in a couple of months. I want to see how you guys operate. I didn't even realize you're on the end. How long have you been? It's a long time. You know, it's weird, I'm sitting there. That voice sounds really familiar. Anderson, wasn't it?
And that was just it. Your
Still living at home?
Well, yeah, that's what he said.
The space works. Little things make a big difference. Yes, I did hear from back then. What I've often done is, but I don't like the idea of going more in. But I remember one time the woman invited me out to her house on Walnut Lake. And the one thing I saw her, she walked past her fireplace. She said, oh no, I know what it was. It was a planter box that was dividing her front entry from the living room proper. And it just screamed 1950. Just look of 1950. She says, I hate that. It just dominates the whole room. Can you do something about that?
Yeah, but they also, they take it.
It was on a slab. And I was fearful that maybe it was on his own little foundation. It would be tough, but it wasn't. Just sitting there on the slab.
It's a little wild.
You know, this big a hole in the side driveway just filled it, and she said it just transformed.
But to give,
Totally changed his things. So I
but to
just
give
try
a
to
variance
think about the little things.
goes to the property.
Yeah, one of the things I know is it's really tough to do in the abstract, especially in drawings. Where do the lights go? And controlling. I mean, lights.
No, there was some.
Maybe you can have so many switches.
His problem was needing federal government to have the okay from Royal.
Oh, really?
That's what the problem was.
Oh, really? So it wasn't enough.
Well, he is still selling it. I'm not sure that was the old thing of you made something in your basement, you go to crash.
What's something, and I frankly don't like, I love cans. Because I think of them as, but I think of it kind of as interesting and between kind of task, but ambient.
They go somewhere.
Oh, yeah. We just redid our bathroom. It was something I wanted to do for many years. We've been in our house 24 years. We had a bedroom, space that was our bedroom is turned into a bathroom. And what was a bedroom and the bathroom into our second master suite. And, I think lighting for women is much more important. And just had the, that I got, Is my hair perfect? Yes,
Huh? This is my cousin over there. The guy who wanted this, TV screens, I got no idea. It's just yeah, but I thought they thought that there was hello there.
That's for my
How are you?
That's for my son. Right here.
It's the hardest thing right now.
Here we go.
It's very, it's like, that is Mr. Big machine. Also, what about the twist? Those things that you do, trigger twist.
Folks out in the audience if any of you are going to be leaving after that last item, can you take your conversations out into the hallway?
But they're choosing to build on it. So it's like, most cases people are coming in front of us looking to split the lot.
They're already building somewhere back here because there was a big holdup back here.
Room cleared out.
As I drove by the street, you could see the dirt.
They're just asking to keep that.
I think so. I wasn't quite sure. It sounded like they wanted one too big, but that must be why. They want to have a second garage. And
biological attorney.
These guys are ready to go. Yeah.
No. It was a very neat ad. I was like,
I did that on Razor in case I waited till it closed and then I voted.
to me, I don't know, that rental house existed like that. It didn't need the other lots.
I would, yeah, I was.
My mom's driving to South Carolina today. I feel like I've turned into the mom. I was like, texting. She was like, mother, you just worry when you're
Next case are your head. All right, so I will reconvene the meeting, and that moves us along to new business item D4, case number 181240, public hearing on the appeal of Michigan Income Fund 2 LLC, petitioner and owner for the following variances. A, waive 5 feet from the minimum required 50-foot lot width for parcel A. B, waive 5 feet from the minimum required 50-foot lot width for parcel B. C, waive 1,050 square feet from the minimum required lot area of 6,000 square feet for parcel A. And D, waive 1,050 square feet from the minimum required lot area of 6,000 feet for parcel B to permit a land division resulting in one vacant buildable lot, parcel A, and one lot with an existing single-family dwelling, parcel B, located at 922 McLean. Mr. Murphy.
The site is comprised of 2 platted lots, and it measures 90 feet in width, 110 feet in depth, and 9,900 square feet in lot area. The petitioner is proposing to demolish the existing garage but retain the existing single-family dwelling on site. And it's intended to break off the other portion of the property to create a buildable single-family property. The petitioner would be reverting back to the original platted dimensions, and we did analyze all the rest of the lots on the block, and you can see in the report the original plat map along with an aerial photograph that depicts the current circumstances. And we would be able to administratively approve reverting back to the original plat if what they were reverting back to is the same size or larger than the majority of the lots on the block in terms of the width, depth, and the area. In this case, it's very close, but it doesn't meet that standard. So it does need a waiver from the default standards of 50 feet in width and a lot area of 6,000 square feet. This may look familiar because it was in front of you in 2016 for the exact same variance request, which was not approved by the board. You'll see that referenced in the report.
All right, any questions for Mr. Murphy? Yes, ma'am.
It looks like all the other lots are 45 feet or less. Is it the depth of the property that's causing the problem because it's angular?
Yes, the width, in terms of the width, it's fine. It's this, you can see the analysis that I've got up on the screen. The first column shows the width, the depth, and then the area. And when we do that analysis, it's the same size or larger than in terms of width, 92% of the lots, but it's that depth and then the resulting area where it's only 48%. Needs to be at least 50% or more in similarity.
Mr. Roca.
Joseph, unless I'm wrong, I don't recall what's supplied here any different than what was in 2016. Nothing really has changed, just years.
Different owners.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I see these gentlemen are ready to go.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Jeff Cuthbertson. I'm counsel for the petitioner and owner, Michigan Income Fund 2. With me is the principal, Brett Russell, with the petitioner. Here to present this evening, I do recognize that this is a matter that has been before you. I did have the opportunity to review the video from the discussion that ensued on this matter previously. One thing that I think was not argued, perhaps to the point that it should have been by the petitioner at the time, was the fact that in addition to seeking the dimensional non-use variances here, there is the implication of the administrative approval section in the ordinance 770-21, I think it's B2A that applies. There is in essence, a relief valve here considered in your zoning ordinance, as far as I can determine, to be able to deal with questions like this. But in some respects, it contemplates that you have uniform subdivision lots that are all very, very similar, or actually in this case, exactly the same in order to be able to obtain relief from it. In this instance, if you consider the original subdivision plat, which I have copies of if it's helpful or instructive to anyone, but my read of the subdivision plat and a broader analysis to that performed by Mr. Murphy would be that only the block between McLean and Chandler, so the houses that are in the middle section of this subdivision, could ever avail themselves of section 770-21. If you're in the same subdivision but you front on Hoffman or Chandler, because of the minor differences of the depth that are involved, you can never meet the area requirements. So when you talk about all the other elements in terms of what has to be met to substantiate the non-use variance request, the area matter here effectively precludes you if you are if you own any of the lots in the original subdivision plat other than 51 through 61 and 74 through 84. And I believe that requires some inspection with respect to whether or not the application of the ordinance does substantial justice for this applicant and similarly situated property owners within this subdivision. So I can certainly put on the proofs as it relates to the rest of your factors. I believe your discussion in the past has touched on those in quite a lot of detail. And I'm certainly happy to do that, but this, to me, if someone's looking for a difference in the matter, I don't think that this fact has ever been adequately presented to this body. So with that, I conclude my remarks till there may be any questions.
Yeah, any questions for the petitioner at this point? Yes, sir.
What's preventing you from being able to use this property as its already current use as a single house on it?
The highest and best use for this property, consistent with the original plat, which would be a permissible use if applied, if the section 77021 was applied, would be to build 2 homes.
But what's preventing you from using it as a single home right now on that?
Well, ostensibly what occurred was that these were 2 separate lots, and someone acquired the second one and likely merged the 2 from a tax perspective.
Long time ago.
Yeah, quite some time ago. But it is that issue and the inability to seek relief under the applicable section of the ordinance, which should deal with this question because of minute differences in the depths of the lots in the subdivision plat, really calls out for the kind of relief that this body can afford.
Any other questions?
I guess I'll just ask a question to the petitioner. Wouldn't you say that there's a market for, being if there are some larger homes through there, to take this opportunity to expand upon the house that's there and use the lot as is?
Well, we actually think the market is best suited to stay consistent with the established pattern of development, which is overwhelmingly 1 home on each one of these platted lots. I think there may be 3 lots on the south end of Chandler, on McLean, that were combined into 2 properties. With that exception, I think the balance of the subdivision, at least along Hoffman, McLean, and Chandler, are all individual single-family homes on 42 to 45-foot lots. So we respectfully submit that the best use for it would be consistent with the existing pattern of development.
And I agree, you'll be putting 1 house on it, right?
1 house on each lot.
1 house on the whole thing?
Mr. Curtis.
Forgive me. It's gotten a little late for me. I want to make sure I understood your original argument about the administrative relief. So, were you arguing that because the way administrative relief is written in our code, it's restricted to this 1 block to compare, but you were arguing in a larger subdivision, there are examples in which administrative relief would work? I want to make sure I understood, because I'm sorry I got tired in the last case.
It's been a long meeting.
Yeah.
And we're back to the mundane here, so let me try to be more clear. The point that I'm trying to make is that the houses that front on the east side of McLean and the west side of Chandler, by my math, when applying this section of the ordinance allowing for administrative relief, are the only lots in this entire subdivision, because they are the deepest lots, could afford themselves of the relief offered in the zoning ordinance. Whereas there are, another probably 70 homes, 75 lots in this very same subdivision, similarly situated, originally platted the same, that due to that very small variance, the depth of the lot, could not seek this relief. That, to me, again, is the point that I'd like to try to make, that is different, that calls for the kind of relief that this body has the power to afford.
Thank you. Either I listened better or...
Or I was clearer, one of the 2.
Anybody else? All right, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to take a seat real quickly just so I can open up the public hearing.
Could I just make one quick comment?
Of course
too?
you can, sir.
I'm pretty sure Joe is here. This almost same identical situation happened a couple blocks to the north on South Wilson. It was denied before I bought it. I came in front, it was the same measurement thing. We tore down the garage. We've built 2 beautiful single-family homes. And I personally feel I would rather build a really nice single-family home that kind of matches with the economy than one of these giant homes. I just don't think on that section it really goes. And we've already transformed that part of South Wilson. It's just kind of repeating that. This is the second time it's kind of happened. So just for some background on that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on this matter? All right, not seeing anybody, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Somebody?
All right, I'll go.
Bazooka?
Well, I supported this motion before, so I would be supporting it again. As far as the criteria for land divisions, and I usually don't like land divisions,
Before we get too much into speaking for or against, would you like to offer a motion?
I'll offer a motion to support the request to split this lot on case number 181240.
I'll support that.
Okay, as to the criteria for land divisions, the width, size, and general character of the lots of the neighborhood and the area, I think council explained it well, and that was my concern looking at it, is that everything is kind of angular on this street, and the width is consistent with every single house on that street, basically. And driving up and down the street, the houses there's a lot of new builds on there. So we know what it's going to look like, and I think it would fit in well. As to B, the width and size leaves adequate buildable space, we know it does. C, the extent to which other developed lots, again, that's something I addressed. The hardship, I think, is created because administratively, this is almost a slam dunk. And as he said, no other house would be able to administratively, if the two lots were put together like this one was, be able to get the administrative variance, and I think that's a hardship on them. I think the variance does substantial justice to the applicant as well as to the other property owners, because it would fit right in with the way the properties are all developed on that street. I think there is a unique circumstance as required by Section C, because all the lots are pretty much 45 feet in width. It's just that slight angle in the back that reduces the overall property size. And I don't think the hardship is really created by the owner because of the way that these lots have all been plotted. So I'm in support of the petition.
Any follow-up?
I
That's
think,
tough to follow.
I think Ms. Zukin said it perfectly.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Although I will agree with some of those points, I still don't agree with all those points. The same reason why I will be voting against this. They have no problem with using the property as it's used currently. One could argue it actually could detriment to the neighborhood, because where you have a property with a little bit larger lot giving a little bit of relief upon there instead of having just rows and rows of houses of tight lots, one could argue the other way direction on that. Possibly the plight of the unique circumstances because of lot size, but overall, 50 feet is 50 feet is 50 feet. So the unique circumstances, unfortunately, their lot is less than that. So, but the large hardship is their own fault because they're wanting to split this lot instead of using it as it's already used. So because of at least half these, if not more of these, in my opinion, are against it, I'm voting against it.
Yes, sir.
I think one of the things moving me is, in fact, that this is a neighborhood of that size lot. I always find it a little weird when we say, oh, there's 35-foot lots over here, but this one's got to be 50 because that's the new rule. But in fact, in the neighborhoods, I think we've been consistent in voting along with the majority of what's going on in the neighborhood. And I think this works. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be supporting this motion as well. I don't know why or how the lot next door ended up being vacant. I don't know if the house burned down 50 years ago and somebody just acquired the property, or if it just didn't get built. But for whatever reason that was, they're just reverting to the original plat, and there's really no reason that a house doesn't exist there currently. So to say that this shouldn't be split and be built with the same equity of every other lot within that particular area, to me, makes no sense. So I think this is actually one of the easier lot splits to approve. Mr. Curtis?
I agree. I think it's going to fit with the character of the neighborhood extremely well, exactly what you just said. Originally platted for a house there. I don't know how it joined either. The notion that there's relief from people in houses by having an empty lot there just doesn't fit with my thinking philosophically. That presupposition doesn't compute in my head. I think you don't need relief from people in neighborhoods. These are what neighborhoods are for.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm on the other side of the table again. In this case, I feel that a nice big lot is an added attraction for a neighborhood. I feel that everybody wants the attached garages that you can just drive into, and we do try and squeeze some of those on even a 50-foot lot. But it's nice to have the extra space around. And I think that here's a perfect opportunity for the petitioner to build something like that. And they're just, decided to, no, we're going to go the route they'll give us a little more financing in our direction, so to speak. I just think that this is, it's not meeting my criteria, which is the criteria of the zoning.
At some point, zoning changed to 150-foot lots. Somehow or another, when they did that, they also knew that this city was filled with 35 to 45-foot lots. But they still decided they wanted all the lots to be 50 feet. At that point, they had to understand they were also causing a little bit of a problem. We also have a square footage. This one, if we split it, loses on both ends. I can't look at the fact that just because it was platted this way, we should let it go back. Because somehow or another, the 50-foot is some problem that has occurred. The people that made the zoning laws decided we didn't want 45-foot lots. You've got one that isn't. I also don't look at it as a house in a vacant lot. It's a double lot. There used to be lots of them in Royal Oak, and they're all disappearing because you can build another house on the property and make a lot of money. So somehow filling every double lot with a second house also doesn't hit me as somehow that's making the neighborhood uniform, or that these were deficits, that there was this open space next to a house. So we have a relief in that if what was the number within all the adjacent lots were the same, they could just do it? 50%.
And Ward 48.
It didn't make that cut, which is why it's before us. But I'm, not going to be for this split on those points of view.
Yeah, if I go back to my plan commission days, one of the things that we discussed and why 50-foot was arrived at was because of so many other parts of the city of Royal Oak. But we also discussed the very fact that when anomalies like this are concerned and people are asking for reasonable relief, and I think this certainly falls under the umbrella of reasonable relief, that's why this board exists, so we can grant it. So that's why I'll be supporting this one. Anybody else? All right, not seeing anybody, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You want hands on the ayes?
No, the no's.
Okay, and those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. No.
3, 4.
You got it. All right, motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
All right, take your time. All right, moving along to item D5, which is case number 181241, public hearing on the appeal of NLS Ventures, RO LLC petitioner and Kaiser Real Estate LLC, owner for the following variance. A use variance to permit conversion of a vacant ground floor retail tenant space to an arcade gaming lounge, LFG Royal Oak, located at 617 South Washington. Mr. Murphy.
In 2015, the property received site plan approval to convert the second floor to 3 residential units on the ground floor to be retail sales. Recently, permits have been obtained and renovations are occurring on the upper level for the residences, and the petitioner is seeking the approval to utilize the ground floor area instead of the approved retail as an arcade or a gaming lounge. The petitioner's recent plan of operation focused on providing a lounge setting for social gaming, and it did not, or it excluded the sale of alcohol, so it does not include alcohol sales. I'll let the petitioner describe their plan of operation, which is probably a little unfamiliar to most of us in this age bracket. But it's essentially, it's a social gaming lounge. And based on the petitioner's plan of operation and the floor plan that was provided, our office had to determine the most closely associated use, how we define it. And we most closely associated it with an arcade. And as we know from probably several months, cases back, in the central business district, the ordinance has an actually explicit term that excludes, which usually, or the ordinance that lists permissible uses, it doesn't list exclusions or excluded uses. However, it does exclude arcades, and again, in this case, that's how we've determined their proposal as the most closely associated use. So they are here seeking a use variance in order to operate as an arcade gaming lounge.
Did I see first? Mr. Curtis.
So that's that's a staff decision to say what you're calling a gaming lounge, the city is calling an arcade.
Yes, we have to, for a variety of uses, not everyone is as clear as a bell as to how they're presented. And so we ask for a petitioner to provide us with a floor plan and a business plan so that we can determine whether there's a definition in the ordinance or a use that's listed as either permitted or special land use. And based on what they provide us, we don't have anything that's clearly worded in that sense. The most closely associated one that we have is an arcade.
Mr. Olfak, then Mr. Kroll.
Oh, Ms. Anderson also had her hand up.
Sure.
So my question to Joseph then is do you know the history behind the arcade and the reason that it's, I don't know, it seems a little unsavory something, and is gaming connected to gambling? Is that
We can have the petitioner present us.
Okay, well, I meant like in our zoning, is that where it's gotten some of those connections like that?
Years ago, there was, as bad apples often spoil it for the whole bunch, and I think we had referenced it in the last case where someone was seeking a variance for an arcade operation that was ancillary to their primary use. But there was a bad apple, and as a result, there was an ordinance provision enacted that remains to this day. It was probably at the time, it was a common business in that decade or decades that disappeared and has been resurrected in one way, shape, or form of similarity that we apply that ordinance provision to as the most closely associated one.
Okay.
So they're not seeking a variant, they're not seeking the opportunity to ask the board to affirm, deny, alter our determination. They're seeking the use variance from how we've determined it to be.
I just was curious about.
I mean, to answer your question a little more directly, there was discussion at the city commission table when Mr. B's wanted to add a gaming facility to theirs, and that went to the city commission because I think their liquor license triggered a different board having to review it. But, and as a matter of fact, the old ordinance that Joe's referring to was put in place when Ms. Perush was mayor. And there were some issues with arcades and downtowns dating back to the early 1980s and what have you, and it's a very archaic ordinance that's still on the books. And as a matter of fact, they did approve the gaming lounge at Mr. B's, and it's very cool. I still suck at Pac-Man, but
Right, because they had the vintage.
but that's what triggered it, and and it's an ordinance that goes back some 3 decades, and even Commissioner Perush and the other commissioners did approve that plan of action. They all conceded that that ordinance is one of those that's going to have to be erased or rewritten. Mr. Olfak and Mr. Kroll.
If we approve this, I assume that unless they alter, say all of a sudden they decide to put in arcade games, that would still be allowed if we approved it, or would that trigger this to come back before us to? Or would it be
We'd have to
something
look
like
at their floor
us?
plan to see how it might be changing. They've presented you with something particular, so
Right.
we should hear them out in terms of what they're actually proposing to do, and go from there.
Mr. Kroll.
Yeah, just, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I'm really struggling with this, knowing arcades and gaming lounges, and I don't see any connection to them, really. You know, if you had put in a coatings, you know, there's so many things closer to a gaming than an arcade. I mean, arcade's old school, gaming's new, and they're really not. I mean, the kids come out of there, go to Princeton, you know, it's a whole different thing. They're not hanging on the street, so. Should be interesting.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions for Mr. Murphy, are the petitioners present?
Mike Javiares from Michael George Construction and Architects, and Nick Stramaglia, the owner. So in doing our research with this project, what we were looking for the ideal location for this kind of new up-and-coming theme that's been going throughout the U.S. So in talking to Mr. Luigi Catrero, he recommended Royal Oak as being a great location for a cutting-edge spot. And so he kind of spearheaded us with the idea and planted the seed, so we moved forward. So, we secured a lease with this facility here. And the main thing that we want to stress here is that our facility is not an arcade as defined by what the Royal Oak zoning ordinance. It's more of an internet cafe with the lounge area. We offer food and, you know, to attract residents. So by definition, an arcade is defined as a commercial establishment featuring an array of large mechanical or electronic games such as pinball machines or video games that charge players money before either through coin operating devices. So we're not that at all. There are no mechanical devices. We are computers. So the intent of the cafe is really entertainment. We got internet computer access, social media, podcast streaming, emails, homework, uploading videos, and the games on these internet units. We are not permitting any mechanical devices, absolutely no gambling whatsoever, no pornographic, no illegal downloading, no piracy, no stalking, and we have no liquor. So security is a big thing for us, so each terminal will have an individual IP address. Each customer will have to provide photo identification to access the terminals, and a copy will be retained for security purposes. So when a customer logs into the system for any purpose, there will be a record as to the IP address and the time period as to that terminal to prevent any type of cyber stalking or any other illegal activities which can be obtained by a police agency. So we will be installing high-level computer security to prevent malware, virus, hacking into each terminal, to prevent any access to inadvertent personal information provided by the customer. Additionally, after each session and prior to the next session, each terminal will be scrubbed and erase any personal information provided by the customer. So our store policy, no age restrictions, high level of security, practice privacy, no personal information kept. And our target demographic really is, the Oakland Community College. We're trying to feed off of that. Any students, faculty during break times. So that's kind of our demographic. So this is obviously a new and kind of an upcoming thing, and it's going around, and it's a competitive thing. You see some of this stuff with EA Sports on ESPN. This is kind of new uncharted territory, and we welcome any recommendations from the board on how you guys can assist us to develop this further, but that's kind of what we're thinking. So I really want to stress that we're not in our arcade facility. So Nick, I don't know if you have anything else to add?
I'm just happy to answer any questions about the operation of the facility, like what we're intending as far as the themes and stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
So you're envisioning sort of like this being like esports or Fortnite competitions or Red Dead?
Those would be streamed like on the TVs like that we might have available for watching, and yes, they'd probably be available to be played within the lounge. Yeah. So esports, very exactly that.
And let's just say a student wanted to come in who was, had a class in an hour, just wanted to grab a sandwich and do homework on his laptop. Would he be able to tap into the Wi-Fi and do that sort of thing also?
Absolutely. There's even if they wanted to run out one of the gaming PCs, there's nothing restricting them to being strictly for video games. It is for all intents and purposes a themed internet lounge or like internet cafe. The computers can be used for any purposes as far as like homework and things like that.
Mr. Crowell, did I see your hand?
Yeah, is there an example anywhere around, or is this so state-of-the-art? I mean, I know I've seen them in other parts of the country, I haven't really seen them here.
Honestly, I can't think of anything that's exactly close to that. You'll see a lot of, I'm sure you've heard of like retro gaming bars that have opened up in the area, and this is the opposite of that. The closest I've been to a very similar place in Georgia, but as far as within Michigan, no, I can't think of any place.
This floor plan almost reminds me of the office, that people come plug their computers in there. It's probably closer to that than an arcade. How many computers will you have going in this place?
As shown, we're going to have 10 computers, and then we're actually planning to have 2 console systems set up for TVs. This plan, yeah. So the computers would be set up at those circle tables.
So will you be charging a cover to get in, or how do you charge for this?
Well, the majority of the profits would be food. It's a restaurant first and foremost. The gaming would be, we would probably put like a small like hourly charge on running one of the PCs, but that's mostly just to keep rotation going. No.
Any other questions for the petitioners?
I do have one on the hours of operation are a little broad. Could you maybe address?
Yeah, it is a lounge. It's not a. I could never envision us staying any later or open any later than midnight. It's not a late night facility. I could see like maybe an event or like if a party wanted to rent it out, staying open till like midnight, but it's not going to have bar hours by any means.
Okay, I was just a little confused too with first I thought it was all about playing video games. And then you just said it's really all about a restaurant with a few video games that you could do or portals or whatever you.
I'm sorry if I caused some confusion. As far as profits are concerned, the major money flow will be coming from food. The major draw will be the video games, but the video games aren't going to be where cash comes from. Those are meant to be enjoyed, so we want to encourage people to use them as much as possible and not just have to come and look at them.
Will each station have their own earphones, or is this more of a
Yep.
Everybody's watching everybody else kind of a thing, or how?
So a lot of the appeal of esports is spectating. Each player would have their own headset and things like that as far as audio is concerned. But they would also, we could also have the option to stream what the player is doing on the computer into the lounge at large. And so people could watch them as they're playing and sort of like, cheer along.
I guess I do enjoy watching my son play this new game. I don't know, Red something. I don't know what it's called, but it's so lifelike, and he's going and getting furs and all that stuff. I don't know, but that's why I was wondering how like if other people came in and they just sat and watched, or I'm trying to flesh out this whole scenario, which is a little.
If you order a sandwich, I'm sure he'll let you watch.
Think of it like this. It's like going to a sports bar, except instead of watching real-life athletes play, you're watching people at computers play as characters on the screen.
Okay.
Mr. Curtis.
I have a question about your choice to be here tonight, because I think your argument is you're not an arcade. And let me finish. I think that's your argument, and yet you're here asking for relief from the ordinance that's calling you an arcade.
Well, as Mr. Murphy stated earlier, it's not really a position where we can argue the judgment of his office whether or not we are an arcade. So in that spirit, I wanted to make it clear to the council, like the idea of what we're trying to place in the position, and the allowance of us going in there as an arcade would allow us to operate it under his judgment of us being, or their judgment of us being an arcade.
Let me add, so we originally had submitted, I had sat down with the building department and presented the concept and the intermediate schematic floor plan, and they had directed us to, complete the drawings and file for building permit. So to our shock and surprise, they returned the drawings and said, hey, we can't approve this. So that's why we ended up here. But so we were originally not even thinking we were needing, because we're entertainment. So this is a central business district. So we were kind of shocked that we were even coming before this, because we didn't consider ourselves as an arcade.
So, let me see if I understand. You talked to building.
Originally, yes.
And got the sense that if I present plans, I'm on the right track. And then, once you got on that track a ways down the road, or down the track, that's when you found out there's this ordinance. And had you known about that ordinance in the first place, maybe that would have changed your approach, or?
I'm not sure if it would have or not.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear that I understand it's very easy to perceive this as a Dave and Buster's, and it's just not the case.
Okay, all right.
Ms. Anderson?
I have a little question for Joseph here, having to do with, maybe you can back it up, but, so, is there a difference between a cyber cafe, where you would just go, maybe you would bring your own computer, or maybe sit in front of somebody else's computer, versus what they're doing, because you can also log into games?
Most restaurants do have internet access now, so I don't know that I would call them, in today's terms, a cyber cafe.
Right,
You're-
okay.
We're all dating ourselves here. Yeah, exactly. But their business plan specifically focuses on not just dining, that element of social
I know, but I
gaming.
was surprised when Mr. Cole mentioned that, so one of the students could come over and do their homework and plug into, so that kind of gave me a different take on
Their restaurant component.
all the games. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
my question is for Mr. Murphy also. Doesn't this board have the authority to challenge administrative decisions if requested to do so?
Yes, the petitioner could ask for that.
But didn't.
Correct. That's not what's in front of you today. Depending on the outcome of tonight's meeting, they could potentially do that.
All right, any other questions? I'm going to ask you gentlemen to take a seat real quickly so I can open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on this matter? Mr. Harrison?
Thank you. Bill Harrison, 2729 Trafford, Royal Oak. I guess I can express my feeling as uncomfortable with this, not necessarily against it. And just to back up to what Joseph was saying about the ordinance, I've been a downtown landlord for over 35 years and was around when this ordinance was promulgated. And it came in about the same time as the ordinance prohibiting massage parlors. And it all goes back to, as what Joe was saying, problematic situations. And as far as, using the computer for gaming, we used to use mechanical typewriters, and it's somewhat semantics to differentiate between the mechanical gaming and the computer gaming. When the ordinance was written around mechanical, that's all that was available. Had we written an ordinance about typewriters, it would have been mechanical typewriters, so I just wanted to clear that up. I guess one of the areas of being uncomfortable is that they originally were seeking permission for a liquor license, then withdrew that, and now they're going with a standard restaurant. And looking at their numbers, not mine, and as I say, I've been in the commercial rental business for over 35 years, their numbers just don't work without liquor. Looking at what they will have to pay in rent, their operating costs, and not even to mention the capitalization of their build-out for this. And my primary concern is about the potential demographics. They're trying to attract the people from OCC, which is fine. We'd like to have more people from OCC participating in downtown, something that we anticipated when they created OCC, and it's really never come to fruition, but that's another subject. We look at something like the hookah bar, that we thought was rather benign, and then we had a drive-by shooting. Now, give the devil its due, they're a 24-hour operation, and these folks are going to close at midnight. And the old adage is nothing ever good happens after midnight, so that's good. As far as one of the things that attracts an undesirable demographic is the sports TVs all over the place. And something that you might want to ask them about, are they going to have the widescreen TVs up with the sports? And will there be the ability to do sports betting? And again, there's a reason why the gaming was prohibited downtown. It was again, a demographic issue. And as far as the ordinance is concerned, I'm not sure what their hardship is. I mean, it's retail, and we have retail and restaurant down here. I don't know what their hardship is with respect to the gaming. Now,
Mr. Harris, I need you to wrap up, please.
Okay, I'll wrap up. I just wanted to say I did have the opportunity to talk to the appellants, and they seem like nice, clean-cut kids. And kids, I'm old enough to be their grandfather, okay? They seem like decent young men. And as I said before, they're going to close at midnight, and nothing good happens after midnight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Ms. Harrison.
Here comes a grumpy old lady.
Now you already got 2 minutes.
I need a tiramisu. Excuse me, Laura Harrison, 2729 Trafford Road. I've got a mixed bag on this whole thing, because when I first looked at it, I thought, oh, another pool parlor like we used to have on Fifth Street. Yay, that was fun. And then we get into, and then I see a liquor license, and then I see gaming. Your definition of gaming and my definition of gaming, mine is probably, say, 60s definition of gaming. And, I'm thinking money. That to me is gaming, betting, that kind of thing. And I'm worried about it. And then they kind of explained, fine. Then I thought, this would be great for kids. These machines to come and, they love, and interact with each other instead of everybody sitting at home in a room with a computer. Just it was kids playing, but it's not. Because they even said they're encouraging the college kids. I'm disappointed, because I was thinking of something more, family style thing, rather than, because college kids are not going to drag mom and dad to play games with them. So, am I for it? No. Am I against it? No. I don't know what I am right now. I'm disappointed, though, only because I thought it was going to be more for younger kids than the young adults, because young adults are a pain in the neck. I raised 2 of them.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Luigi.
Good evening, Luigi Cutraro, 415 South Washington. I've been listening to the tech team. They happen to be friends of mine for 35 years. But I'm from the old school. Gaming, it's the casino. I mean, everybody in the right mind when they're thinking about gaming, why you want to go in a 1,400 square foot place when you got 300,000 square foot in Detroit? I know Nick since he was a little kid. What happened is I was in Italy this summer. Oh, I got time. I was in it, and I see a bunch of kids talking on the computer with some other kids from another city, which I'll be honest with you, my judgment, it was pretty stupid, because in the old days, I used to do different things, but that's what the kids do today. I mean, we all got kids. My kids, they don't talk on the phone. They send messages. I mean, and that's what this whole thing is all about. I mean, I would like to see, especially in Washington, I would like to see a little early crowd, because our downtown right now, we don't have absolutely nothing, okay? Most of the establishments, I've been in the city for longer than you, Bill. I've been in the city for a long time. And most of the establishment, they pretty much, the last 10 years have been the same. Okay, we need young people. I'll be honest with you. I don't even know how to use my cell phone. Okay, but I ain't got no idea what he's doing. I mean, the reason why I told them to come to Royal Oak, because I think that's what Royal Oak was based on. Crispy, new idea, younger people. We're not about those big restaurants, Royal Oak has always been places like this one. Now, my kids kind of explain to me what they're doing. My kids love it. My kids are not kids anymore. They're 30, 28 years and up, okay? And, when we talk about arcade, I went to Mr. B. John happened to be a dear friend of mine. Those are arcade. That's what I like. I don't like going on the computer. I like more the arcade. But the new generation don't like that. They like what they're doing. So I think, that's a good idea. I hope you guys, vote for. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Yes, sir.
Oh, did I beat you, Paul?
I'm slow, man. It's been a long day.
Anthony's on his game tonight.
I'm gonna motion to approve this
Got
one.
it fast button over there.
I like this. It's not what people think of in normally arcades. I've seen some of the stuff at other cities, especially around colleges. So I think he's right with going for that. Laura actually probably hit on it for them, getting the younger crowd. If they're smart, they'll do something with like the schools around the area to team up with clubs and stuff to come down and get it that way, so you get a little different crowd. But I do agree with Luigi. This is a fresh idea, and it's not something that's going to be detrimental, in my opinion. It's a unique circumstance, so that's where the hardship comes in, is that there's nothing like this to really compare to around here. So I can't, without the liquor license, since I don't have one, I can't see anything that's going to be detrimental in this case. Esports is huge. People are actually starting to get paid to do esports around it, just gaming, and he's right. There's people who just sit around and just watch people game, just like people go watch football. It's more entertaining and stuff like that. You're right there with the athlete.
Oh, they're athletes?
I wasn't ready to go there, but okay.
That's considered athlete.
I got it.
Mr. Curtis, anything you want to follow up?
In terms of hardship, I think the hardship is this doesn't fit, the ordinance doesn't touch this, and they're caught in a time warp of so to speak. This is a wonderful idea, excited to see it. I really love it because it's a destination type of business, right? I mean, it's not just another restaurant or something, it's a destination type. People will come and maybe have dinner at Luigi's.
Mr. Kroll.
I think I heard a couple of motions there, but no one actually made one, so I'll make.
did.
Oh, you made a motion?
Yeah.
Oh, and you supported it?
I second.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, good.
Fast today.
Yeah, I'm nodding out a little bit. Interesting enough, my son, who's an app designer and quite successful, has an interest in a place in Manhattan that does this. And interesting, Ms. Harrison, that one of the things that they say is, we had all these kids playing out of their living room, kids from all over the place. And it is actually everybody said the kids got to go out and play ball and they got to do something other than computers, but this is actually kind of a gathering place for the kids to come together and do what they've all been doing alone. So that there is quite a social aspect to it. I will be definitely supporting it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have a problem procedurally because this is a use variance. The ordinance, though, this is an explicit prohibition against mechanical arcades. So I don't think it fits in. I don't think it fits the criteria for a use variance either. So they are between a rock and a hard place, but I don't think it's a hardship. So I'm not sure how to vote because it is a use variance and I don't think it meets the criteria.
I'm curious how you would describe being between a rock and a hard place other than a
Than
hardship.
Because they could do something else here. I mean, it's not something that, they can't use the property. They could do it for a restaurant. They could use it for anything else. And I do think that this type of operation is a replacement for arcades. I don't think arcades are bad. And this was situational for what was going on whenever they passed this ordinance, and it's not going on anymore, but we still have the ordinance. So I'm not sure how I'm going to vote.
Did you have a comment, Mr. Kroll?
Only that I think we need to either overrule administration on this, or, I'm in agreement with you, but we're comparing apples and oranges, so that's my problem with it.
Right.
They shouldn't even have to be here tonight. They should be able to go rent any store they want and bring in a cool new concept. I mean, we're Royal Oak, right? We're supposed to be coming up with state-of-the-art kinds of things, and this is, so.
Well, I think then if we phrase what we're doing as overruling the administrative decision, then I have no problem with that, because I don't think it is an arcade. But that's not what's before us.
Well, that ordinance, if you watch the discussion at the city commission table when Johnny got his arcade at Mr. B's, everybody agrees that it was an ordinance designed to address a problem that no longer exists.
I agree.
And, well, it's going to be scrubbed. I mean, I think that's on their radar, so. Any other comments? Then I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Yeah.
Aye. Those opposed?
I want to see the ordinance scrubbed, and I think if we take actions like that, that might help move ordinances along, but I would hate to do it to it.
Let's be clear, Ms. Zukin was the only no?
Yeah.
That's the spirit.
I don't know if I saw another hand over there, so, thank you, gentlemen. Yeah.
Good luck.
All right, moving right along to D6, case number 181242, public hearing on the appeal of Jennifer Van Leen petitioner and Middlebelt Landing LLC owner for the following variance: waive 19 of the minimum required 35 total off-street parking spaces to permit conversion of a vacant commercial tenant space to a restaurant located at 30148 Woodward Avenue. Mr. Murphy.
Why are you not working?
Subject property contains a two-story building. The ground floor has 2 tenant spaces, an electronics repair facility, and this particular vacant space, which was previously occupied by an art framing service. The upper level contains vacant professional office space and a vacant apartment. And the petitioner's use as a restaurant requires a greater amount of parking than the prior use, which was a art framing gallery. A restaurant requires 1 parking space per 65 square feet of floor area, and the prior use required 1 per 800 square feet of floor area.
Oh, wow.
So quite a bit of difference. And there is a off-street parking lot behind the building that's in rather disrepair. It's not, doesn't have striped spaces. It does have sufficient room to provide 3, or describe them as standard-sized parking spaces, and 1 required barrier-free parking space. So based on the existing and previous approved uses, the site is already unfortunately currently deficient in terms of providing the off-street parking. This proposed restaurant increases that parking demand and necessitates a waiver of 19 of the minimum required 35 total off-street parking spaces. There's a table in the report that if you'd like, we can reference it. It highlights a variety of uses in the ordinance and what their required amount of parking is. It also highlights the uses that are in the building, previously approved uses in comparison to the petitioner's proposal and how that increases the overall number.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy?
Joe, have we ever figured out how much over parking Woodward Avenue is?
No, I would love to have the time to do that someday.
Everything we vote on needs 30 spaces, so at some point, it seems like we're gonna run out. Unless automatic cars come, then we're gonna have an overabundance of parking.
Usually the variances are related with changes to restaurants, because restaurants are arguably our most intense use. Retail and office are remarkably similar. Because usually if those change uses, they're so similar in parking nature, they're the same. But once you change something from a lower parking count to a restaurant, restaurants always necessitate a greater amount of parking. And reusing an existing tenant space in an existing building is not a rather uncommon request that you see in front of you.
Mr. Collette, I see your hand also.
Yeah, just to confirm, so we're not counting any of the parking along Woodward either, correct?
Correct. We don't count that because it's not on the petitioner's property. It is available to anyone that wants to park in the Woodward Avenue right away.
And it could be taken away by the state, like over by Trader Joe's and Murray's that was taken away. So
there's probably about 4 spaces in front of their space, but we can't count them.
I don't recall
I don't know the count,
perhaps
but
the
it's
property owner
close.
would be able to tell us. I don't recall how many properties are on the block and if they have a difficult time with available parking in front of their businesses.
All right. That being said, is the petitioner present?
Good evening. My name is Scott Munchnick. I'm the architect that's working with Jennifer. Do you need my address?
Yeah, please.
1700 Stutz Drive, Troy, Michigan.
Thank
you. We're before you tonight because Jennifer has leased out the space on the first floor that was previously the frame shop. And as Mr. Murphy has explained, it increased the intensity by a lot. There is a few spaces of angled parking in front of the building that we don't get to count. And you're right, it's probably about 4. In the back, Mr. Murphy's correct, we could get about 4 spaces in the back. The restaurant would require all the spaces, plus I think there's additional spaces required that Mr. Murphy was very generous in his calculations. At the end of the day, it's a self-imposed hardship because we chose to go there. So I don't know how to argue that. In terms of criteria, there is no physical space to add all those spaces. The large difference in parking is because of the intensity of the new use. And again, I don't know what our hardship would be. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
this I'm trying to figure out what type of restaurant this is, because it seems like you have a kid zone here. So I would like, could you explain more about what type of restaurant this is? And particularly how many people, staff as well as visitors, you anticipate at any given time, or at least worst case scenario, because that's where parking always comes in, worst case scenario.
Okay. So it was intended to be ice cream, hard sell ice cream, hot dogs, and French fries. So there's a commercial kitchen there. There's a kid zone because I do have kids, and I love it when I don't get the rolls of the eyes when I bring my kids to a restaurant. So the intention was to have a kid play area so the adults could eat while they watch their kids play and not be all over them. I would anticipate that we need about 10 employees, 5 to 10, depending on the day. Like a Saturday, probably a lot busier than a Monday or Tuesday. And then I would say dinner rush would probably be my busiest time, and I would say anywhere between 12 to 20 people. But it'd be one car, obviously, per family.
How many people at that staff time when you are saying 12 to 20 people?
I guess I would have to say at least 5, because you need someone to take an order, someone to be able to wash the dishes, someone to be able to clean up, stuff like that.
Okay.
Cook. Yeah, so I'd say about 5.
Okay. Because the one other thing, if you're anticipating all that, say those 5 are in the back there, and I have a feeling if there's people here that are going to be speaking about the overflow into the neighborhood, if there's not parking enough for customers to park, you're going to lose stuff. So I don't know if you might have, it sounds like a good idea, but wrong location possibly with how many you anticipate, because ice cream and hot dogs and stuff like that's quick turnaround. But I'm concerned about the burden that the parking is going to bring upon this with how many you anticipate.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Nobody? All right. I'm going to ask you folks to take a seat real quickly and open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on this matter? Ms. Harrison?
We have 2 that Mrs. Harrison is.
Two 729 Trafford Road, I'm still there. Been there for 45 years. About one quickie about the fences over on Guilford. You should have those fences 20 feet high. People leap over the fences into the backyards. I've got stories. Anyhow, there are 6 possible businesses that could go in that location. That was your question. The only place that has any amount of parking at all is the old Studebaker dealership, which is on the corner. That's the one that's got the showroom and then the work garage, and it's got parking right there. There's only like maybe 6 places to park there. I think it's a bad choice. I really do. I mean, the neighborhood, you can park on the side street between the sidewalk and the alley, but you could only get 2 cars. So they got 2 cars there. You can't park on the other side. I'm talking about Burnham, because on the other side, you've got cars parked there because you've got the used car dealership right there on the corner of Webster and Woodward. And that their customers park there. You can't park in the area in front. Everybody knows that. On Burnham, there's Glenwood, there's probably a couple of spaces also, but still not enough. The alley is in desperate bad condition. And there is not enough parking because you need a space for a dumpster. And once you put a dumpster in, you're going to lose at least 1 parking space in the back. You've got to have enough for your employees, and what did she say, 10 employees? 6, 10? You don't even have enough parking for all the employees. My street from Woodward to Eaton Cross is no parking, first block, no parking at all. I would suggest she look at Payway, because Payway's empty. And they have a parking lot in front of their building. So, you know, I don't think it's gonna work, not in that location. And a lot of those spaces have been empty for a long time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Did I see a hand back there? Yes. You'll be next, sir.
My 3 minutes start.
I'll wait 5 seconds for you to.
I'm not gonna talk for 3 minutes, but it doesn't matter.
Don't worry
Okay,
about it.
anyway, my name's Ed Khalil. I live on Burnham Street. I've been there since 1976. We have no parking in the street, as it was indicated before, and there's a reason for that. I mean, because we were getting a lot of people parking in, so we put the signs up, and I'd like them to stay that way. As Laura mentioned, you know, you need you need space for dumpsters, and you need space for employees and all that, and I don't see where there's going to be 19 places, because there's other business there also. And she mentioned ice cream and hot dog, and I hate to burst anybody's bubble, because I like to see young people make it. You know, I've had a business at one time too when I was young, but I don't think that type of business is going to make it. On the next block where we had the 2 restaurants left, we had an ice cream store there. There was this 2 other establishments just left, and I understand now that a burger place is going to be opening there. And it seems that if they were going to start a restaurant, the car dealership that didn't make it there would be a more adequate place. You have plenty of parking for everybody there. But, and we don't want our neighborhood to turn into a parking place for businesses. And I think the increased traffic would be a problem, because, you know, with increased traffic, you have increased problems of, you know, everything else. And so, and the little bit of and the other thing that really concerns me, and I can tell you this from people that I know in Berkeley, is that you have the increased revenue that the city is going to get will be offset by the increased expense that we will get to take care of a rodent problem that I think will increase, and it does that wherever there's restaurants. And I can tell you of a place in Berkeley where someone lives in that same area where there's restaurants, and she told me the other day she set 20 traps and caught 18, so 2 got away. So, you know, we don't want that situation over here. So I'm worried about, you know, extra traffic and rodent problems, and I don't really think that business is going to work. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Who's next? Did I see your hand before? Yes, sir, please.
Good evening, late night. So, Stephen Band, I'm one of the partners, members of the property. Jennifer was going to be my tenant. The concept was a family for the neighborhood ice cream place. It developed for off-season. They have hot dogs and French fries, which then required a commercial kitchen, which then required it to be a restaurant. Now, if you take a look at ice cream, and originally there was a window, and I guess that's been eliminated. I vision it at the same, to the north, there's 3 ice cream places down there. One next to Big Al's Deli, one across the street in Birmingham, another one just north of Maple. And the same type of situation. Now, when you take a look at the block, we have our building, which is 4,000 feet on the ground floor, 4,000 feet upstairs, 2,000-foot basement. Solo Records is on the block. On the corner was the old Northwood Jewelers, which he is not leasing out, does not want to sell the building. I've tried buying it. Next to us to the north is Greg. It's been empty since 2010. He doesn't want to sell it. He doesn't want to lease it. He's using it for his own personal property. And on the corner, you have the car lot, now, which is a rental repair, which has been closed. But what he does is he opens up once every 6 months for a day to keep his license that he has there. So the entire block is empty, other than Solo Records. And that's either state or county that owns that parking. We've tried various things. The whole block is empty. Jennifer's hours that she has is going to be different because her business, and she can elaborate, is going to be a different time than what's there. So you have an entire empty block. Now, behind our building, we have some limited parking back there. There's some limited parking that's behind Solo Records and the vacant on the corner. And the auto service, I don't know what he's doing or not doing, other than Joe told me that he may want to be able to sell it, but nobody else does. Eventually, we'd like to do something with that entire block, but we're up against the wall. The alley, I've made phone calls to the city. Nobody wants to do anything. It's there. We maintain our area, and we do it. So based on what we had is we had a neighborhood type of business that Jennifer wanted to open. We felt it was family orientated. She could talk about the amount of people, but one car could hold 4 people. Some of the people are going to be walking there from the neighborhood. So in effect, it's an ice cream store, it's no family diner. It's not breakfast. It's not a clock. It's not a Leo's. It's a neighborhood type of use, just like there is down the way. And I'm looking at the codes on there, and I'm going, theoretically, we can't lease our building. It's got to remain empty. There's not enough parking to support anything based on your codes. So I don't know what to do. That's a hardship that cannot be overcome. There's nothing, nobody will do anything on the block. We painted the building, we improved it, the city came in, we did everything else. So the hardship is something that can't be gotten. And technically, you come up with all the uses, and if you count the number of parking spaces, we've got an empty building that cannot be leased based on what's there.
So I need you to wrap up, please.
That's it, that's the hardship. It can't be gotten. And I wish there were more tenants out there to be gotten of the type that somebody wishes may be done. And the reason on the next center that they moved out, the Bloomberry and the other one, they can't afford the rents. It just doesn't work. We try to be work for neighborhood, but thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anybody else? And I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table.
That side's asleep, it looks like.
It's a late night.
Yeah, Paul's still up.
Yeah, I'm hanging in.
Do you want to start the discussion, Mr. Curtis?
I don't have a motion, and you all like motions, so I'll let someone else start.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to put a motion out to approve this.
I'll second for discussion's sake.
Thank you. I don't know how many Woodward properties I've sat through in my term here. I was in Berkeley for 5 years, and we had them over there too. So I used to get really frustrated and say, well, why don't we just blow that building up, blacktop it, and then we'll have parking for the other buildings? But that isn't realistic. And I hear you, sir. What the hell are you supposed to do with this building? The other side of that, though, really is, if you look at the people that we have approved on Woodward, or people are constantly moving there, so it's not a dead zone by any means, and everybody seems to do all right. So I don't know where the cars are parking. Maybe they're in the neighborhoods. I don't know, but it seems like the people that come on to Woodward, a lot of people have been in Woodward for a long time with no parking. I think it's clear, we would turn everybody down at this table if it were Woodward and parking, and we do approve some. So my thought is it's really black and white at this point. I think an entrepreneur that comes forward and says, I'll take that chance, I'm willing to bet on.
Since you seconded?
I'm still sort of torn on this because the fact of the amount of minimum required that they want to waive, it'd be different if it was waiving 5, in my opinion, maybe even waiving 10, but we're up to 19, which is over half the required spots. But I did want to, I agree, Woodward has a problem. This place has a unique problem in that it might be the only other spot other than Solo that would be open at any given time, so even though it doesn't have the spots, theoretically it does because nothing else is there open. However, if other stuff comes in there and I'm not on the board and they go ahead and approve it, it's gonna create problems for the neighborhood. So I'm still torn on this just because of how much it is. Because for sure the spots in the back, that's going to be going to staff. So therefore, anyone who's going to be coming to this is only going to be parking in the front. So long as the state decides not to take away those spots, they're in business. Once the state decides, hey, we want to get rid of those and make it, I don't know, a transit lane, a bike lane, whatever, she's going to be SOL, and at that time she'll probably have to figure out something else to do. So it's one of those things of if you let the market take care of itself one way or another, actually they're sink or swim. So, like I said, I'm torn either way.
Mr. Curtis?
Yeah, I'm going to vote in, not in support, against that motion. I don't think this is a good fit. I think there's too many waived spots here. Did you say she's going to be same old Lions? Did you? SOL? There's got to be something that's a better fit for this space than a restaurant. I just don't think we can support this many spaces and waive that many things. I get the idea that Woodward has its problems with parking, but there's a reason the streets are no parking up and down that area, and a restaurant is exactly the sort of thing that that has created that. I think there's got to be a better fit for this space than a restaurant. I'll be against that motion.
Yeah, if I could just answer to that, there's a lot of empty buildings on Woodward right now. And we have a tendency to group Woodward Avenue as we do the rest of the city. Woodward has, I used to be on the Woodward Business Association. We used to go talk with the neighborhood groups. And you would swear that all the neighbors bought it in the middle of the night and didn't see Woodward there. I mean, people move to Woodward and then have, because it's a great thoroughfare and it's easy to get places, but then they have a problem if anybody parks, it's a city. I don't know, the problem with that concept is there aren't these businesses that fit. We turned the one down on Bassett because Cruz and Mears was taking all the parking and it was a real mess. But it's true everywhere. And the amount of spaces they're asking is not really uncommon for Woodward Avenue. I mean, if you go back and look at the cases that we've handled over the years, it's all 20 spaces. I mean, they got 6 spaces in front of the store, and that doesn't allow you to do. You could open a knit shop, I think. I think that's maybe the one thing you could do. So people own buildings. My thought's always been, water will seek its level. If in fact nobody can park there, no one will eat there, and it won't last very long, that's a risk that she needs to be able to take. From my perspective, I think we got a long road with 180,000 cars going down in a year. People will want a business on there, and they're going to take that chance. So,
may I respond? Just because someone wants to take a shot at it doesn't mean we should let them. There's a reason why we've been appointed to a board to make these sorts of decisions. If it's a bad idea, it's a bad idea, even if they think it's a good one. And the idea of, yeah, there are people who bought buildings there and they're sitting empty. Well, that's another business decision I'm not allowed to speak to. That was their decision. That wasn't a board decision. So I'm firmly against this particular motion. I don't think it's a good fit.
Any other comments? Ms. Zukin and then Ms. Anderson.
I'll try to be quick. I agree, it's a real risk for the restaurant owner to do this, and it's a risk she's willing to take, fine, except for the risk also falls on the neighborhoods. In case it's a successful restaurant and they want to park there, it is going to be a problem because there's just too many spaces that are being
Aren't there no
asked to be
parking,
waived.
aren't there no
Hold on, let her
market?
Well, you
finish.
can go down further, or they can park there illegally. I just think it's going to be a problem.
Ms. Anderson, you were next.
Well, we're looking at approving something that has the second highest need for parking spaces on the whole list. And there's plenty of things other things that would fit there. The highest one is the fitness, one spot per 4 people. And the other one is, the current one is 1 for 65. And then the rest are all much less intense. And I won't be able to prove it because I really think it's going to be bad for everyone, honestly, the neighbors and everything.
Mr. Curtis.
I'm sorry, may I make one more point? The petitioner got up and said, I don't know what to tell you about a hardship. I think he said it 2 or 3 times, that he doesn't have a hardship. That's what he said, not me.
Woodward is a hardship.
He said he doesn't have one.
Yeah. I'm agree with Paul that essentially the petitioner stood up and said there's no hardship here. Woodward didn't stand up and ask for a hardship. The petitioner did, and they said there really wasn't a hardship here, so I'll be voting no.
Any other comments?
Well,
Ms. Anderson.
I agree with Mr. Cole and the petitioner or the petitioner's lack of saying that there's a hardship, and Woodward is a hardship, and I'll grant it that. But there's other options for this space that will do better by far for everyone involved.
I would suggest to you that there's probably not a lot of options for that space.
Alan, everything has its time, and it'll come. People see opportunity on Woodward, they'll do it. But right now, this one is just asking for too many parking spaces, in my opinion.
None of you are wrong, by the way. It's a unique set of circumstances. I mean, it is. It's asking a lot, but where are you going to park?
Well, in trying to wrap this up, I mean, I will be supporting this motion, and I think the nature of our business also will be driven by the time that type of business gets used, and I've always been a believer in sort of that shared parking analysis, and then she'll be busy when other businesses aren't busy, and the reality is, I mean, and even though the gentleman didn't say it, Woodward is a hardship. I mean, if I could go back in time and find the guy that designed this corridor, I'd like to take him out to the woodshed and have a little talk with him, because every business that comes up on Woodward, I mean, we have this discussion. So whether or not she's taking a reasonable business risk, that's not for this board to determine. She wants to open up a business. The hardship is that Woodward is a problem for anybody who wants to park there. And frankly, I would rather see her business there than this row of vacant buildings, which has been there for quite some time. I mean, a little TLC on that site and a facelift. I welcome it, so. Any other comments? All right, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor to approve signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
No.
So what do you want?
You were yes.
I was an aye, yes, I'll support.
So the motion to grant the variance
It did fail 5-4.
fails,
All right.
6-3.
Oh, that's right, it's COS.
Yes, it failed 6-3.
Wait, who are the yeses? Okay.
Yeah, you were not a yes.
I was not a yes.
Okay, you were.
Firmly.
So let's
need
make a
somebody-
motion.
May I
somebody
make a
on the other
motion
side
to
needs make a
deny?
motion to deny, yes.
May I make a motion to deny
Yes.
the variance
I'll
request?
support.
Any additional discussion? All right, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion to deny signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Nay.
Thank you. That just keeps a clean record of an affirmative.
No problem. Thank you, folks. All right, so that takes us down to item D7, case number 181243, public hearing on the appeal of LL Custom Contracting, Inc., petitioner, and Christopher Carden and Suna Kothawala, I hope I said that correctly, owners for the following variance. Folks, can you take it out in the hall, please?
Thank you.
Waive 243 square feet of the maximum allowable accessory ground floor area of 800 square feet to permit construction of a 673 square foot attached accessory structure garage and retain the existing 370-foot detached accessory structure, the garage located at 1619 North Washington. Mr. Murphy.
This site contains a single-family home and a detached garage. The petitioner is proposing to construct an addition to the home, which would include a 673 square foot attached garage. They're looking to retain or keep the existing detached garage, which would be to the rear of the dwelling, and the size of that existing garage is 370 square feet. The ordinance does allow for 2 accessory structures, in this case, the existing detached garage and the proposed attached garage. So it does allow for 2. However, the sum total floor area of the 2 can't be more than 800 square feet, and it can't be more than 10% of the lot area. It's a sizable size lot, and the total lot coverage for the accessory structures would be 8.1%, which is below that 10% maximum. But the ordinance does state that in no instance can the sum total be in excess of 800 square feet. And the resulting square footage would be 1,043 square feet. So they're seeking a waiver from that difference from 800 in order to keep the existing garage and construct a new attached garage.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, not seeing any. Are the petitioners present? Please come forward.
Good evening, members of the board. I know everybody's tired. I'll try and make this quick. My name is John Sarkeesian of John Sarkeesian Architects, 412 South Washington in Royal Oak. And my clients, the Cardin Kathawala family, they've lived in Royal Oak for 25 years. This is their second home. Excuse me. They bought this home 6 years ago? About 6 years ago, and with the intention of expanding it. It's a classic California craftsman. About 5 years ago, Chris spoke with Tim Thwing about the possibility of splitting the lot and learned that the depth of the lot is 3 feet short of being a splittable lot. So we have a lot that's almost 99 feet wide, and it's 130 feet deep, and it is basically 296 square feet short of being a splittable lot. So because of that, we can only apply one 800 square foot max of the accessory structures to this enormous lot. So we're doing a very low density, building expansion. The actual total lot coverage for this proposed addition, including the existing detached garage, is 18.87 square feet. I'm sorry, 18.87%, as opposed to the, I think allowable is 30%. So it's a very low density addition. The hardship is that this lot is 3 feet short of a splittable lot. It's twofold. That's part of the hardship, not caused by them. And the other thing I believe that is a hardship is the 800 square foot cap doesn't really apply to a double lot. Now, I know this is technically not a double lot, but it's quite a bit bigger than things that are allowed to be considered a double lot. So, I mean, there's 35 and 45 foot lots all over Royal Oak. This lot right here is just under 99 feet wide. So we are asking for a variance for those 2 reasons, and we feel that it's a classic craftsman. We're adding on to it in a very subtle way. It's architecturally authentic, and there's basically going to be going north from the attached garage. There's basically 32 feet to the north lot line, 52 feet from the detached garage to the north lot line. It's a very, very low density addition, and so we're asking for a variance of basically 243 square feet, which is basically 1.89% of the close to 13,000 square foot lot. So if there's any questions, please feel free to ask me, and also Mr. Cardin would like to say a few things.
Please.
Christopher Carden, 1619 North Washington Avenue, Royal Oak. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you for your time. I would rather be home sleeping myself, but I appreciate this. I've been going to zoning boards, believe it or not, since I was in high school when I got extra credit for government class, and there's always something interesting going on. I'm always excited. I can't believe I'm saying that, but these are pretty cool. So one of the challenges we have, this is not counting as a hardship, but I mean, one of the challenges we have in this house is storage. We're in a 1,400 square foot home. We actually moved from a larger home to a smaller home to accommodate our children, to get them into the schools that we wanted, at a time when we were denied by the school board. We were denied a transfer request. We wanted our youngest to get into Northwood, so we moved into the Northwood neighborhood, and this was the only house we could find 6 years ago, right before the GM bankruptcy, when again rates were going up, houses were hard to find. So this was kind of a big challenge for us. So we need to expand. In this expansion, we're losing some attic space. There's corner attics in the second floor right now that we use for our Christmas stuff and for kids' clothes and seasonal things. We're losing that. And believe it or not, with a larger garage, we're losing storage in the garage. And you have to realize the old garage is very shallow, built in 1921 to accommodate Model T Fords. You can't fit anything in there except maybe a couple hatchbacks. And so we use that garage for a workshop and storage. We store all our camping gear. I was telling John, we're a family of 5, but we always somehow have 7 bikes. and they get rotated, so they're being used. One is an old one that my wife doesn't want to give up for sentimental reasons, but and then we store all our gardening stuff in there and all the car stuff. Now, I think in the new garage, we will be able to fit on one side. We'll be able to fit all the gardening tools and the automotive stuff, but we won't be able to move the workshop by any means into the garage. There's no room for that. And we won't be able to move the camping gear or any of the stuff I've got stored in the loft. As you saw maybe from the drawing, we're putting the upper area of the garage will be a walk-in closet for the master bedroom upstairs. That's the only way we could get kind of an ensuite situation. So John built a really nice solution for that. So overall, the garage will now, for the first time, we'll have a garage that actually can store cars, and we're excited about that, and keep them off the streets. We just had neighbor's car got hit this summer by somebody who fell asleep at the wheel. And it's a very busy street. That part of Washington is extremely active with a lot of speeders. So the request is just to help us with this back area that we will still continue to use for some storage, the camping, the bikes, and or at least some of the bikes. Because I can't raise the bikes up into the rafters. There are no rafters that we'll have access to in the new garage. I've considered that, but we just can't make it fit. And then this would also be a workshop. My kids like to work with me on projects. We like to do maker-type projects. And anything I can do to keep those kids, I hate to say it, but anything I can do to keep them off the video games, I'm happy. Because they're spending like 10, 12 hours a day on those games. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
May I add one more real quick comment? I just wanted to mention that because of the lot being slightly shallower than it needs to be splittable, this 12,834 square foot lot is like 296 square feet short of being a splittable lot. And so therefore, if it were a splittable lot, you could have 2 800 square foot entities that count as accessory buildings. So that's what I mentioned.
Any questions for the petitioner? All right, not seeing any. Do either of you two wish to speak on this matter? All right, then I will go ahead and open and...
No clapping?
And close the public hearing. Yes, sir, floor is yours.
I'm going to, first off, applaud you very much for not splitting this lot and actually doing something.
I thought that was Leslie's line.
I wish more people did. It's a beautiful design and beautiful. I can understand why your hardship is you have this large lot. So I'm going to propose that we grant the variances as you requested.
We have a motion?
I'll support.
Second?
As stated by you, this is a double lot in a way, so it's an oversized lot. The zoning was set up for the typical lots, so I appreciate that it's still under 10% over this whole lot coverage. And I can understand why you'd want to keep that garage, even though in my head originally when I saw this, I was like, well, why couldn't you add on a little bit more to your own garage or the house somewhere else and have a little shed? But I can understand and appreciate, so I have no problem with this one.
Any follow-up?
No, I was going to say, those are all great comments and great design as well. I was actually shocked you were in front of us. I thought you would have split the lot versus adding the addition to it. So again, I commend you for that as well, too.
Neighbors wouldn't support that
They
anyway.
would support that. Probably not. You'd have a bigger audience here.
Oh, my.
They told me, no, the neighbors told me that they would not support.
Support a lot split. But the lot can support it. It's not overbuilt. It seems like it can support it. You explain your reasoning for this need for storage, which makes sense to me. So I'm in support.
Mr. Kroll?
I've historically voted against two garages, but I think I can live with this situation because of the size of the lot. I think I'll be supporting it.
Yes, ma'am.
Quick question for Joseph, I guess. If this wasn't a garage that they were adding on, if it was part of the house, would they need a variance?
Not this variance, no.
I think so,
I know
because
they
it would be
wouldn't
more
need this
square footage.
variance, but-
I think it would be over the square footage limit, so we would still need the variance.
Would be.
And we
So-
looked into, John actually, we have earlier versions of the plans where he put a workshop on the north end of the garage. And the cost was prohibitive. My wife told me it was. $20,000 for a workshop. She said that's not in the budget, so.
Any other questions or comments? All right, then I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Sometimes there's an advantage to going last.
Thank you very much.
The only time you see me vote for a bigger than 800 square foot.
Is there any other business?
But with that extra lot.
Mr. Murphy?
So it's not like it's.
Then,
I'd like to move to adjourn.
No, public comment?
All
He's supporting that.
piece rather than,
Comment?
you know.
At least a chance?
That's what I'm like.
copy.
I don't know, I'm just saying there's a lot. Gotta at least ask if there is.
Well, they stayed with it. Why did they stay?
We're not adjourned.
Oh, let
We're not
me
adjourned
close
yet.
the meeting. All right.
That's all right.
All right, so.
Unless you have some general public comment, okay.
Oh, you wanna be quick on this one?
Got this one. Let's move to
Okay, so-
adjourn.
Let me call
This
for
one
the
I
vote.
got.
All those in favor of the motion to adjourn signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.